Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Public Management Academy number 5 project presentations. My name is Rob Zile. For any of those guests that are joining us today, on behalf of the Levin College and the Ohio Certified Public Manager Program, I just want to thank you for spending some time with us today. And on behalf of our advisory board and our staff and our instructors and our project advisors, I just really want to say thank you and congratulations to Public Management Academy number 5. It has been a crazy year. That's sort of an understatement, but this has been a long journey, not only dealing with the pandemic, but the fact that we've had to pivot from an online presence to going virtual, trying to figure out how to do the technology, how to network, how to continue to stay connected. And I'm just so proud of everybody's dedication to this program, sticking it out with us, and especially these projects. The projects are the stretch opportunity for the program, and everyone in this group in particular really went above and beyond to not only demonstrate learning, but give something back to the community. And I'm just so thankful to be part of this. And this is the return on the investment for, hopefully for you, definitely for us, and definitely for the community. So on behalf of the community, I want to say thank you for everything that you've done to endure, and I would say be really resilient, which is one of the core things I think that's important for public managers. Throughout today, how today is going to work, this is our very first time that we're offering this program, the project presentations in this format. So it's definitely a little bit different. We're going to have to just adjust to the new sequencing and the new technology, but that's what we've been doing. So I think we're getting good at that now. What's going to happen is we're going to have 6 projects today. The presentation schedule is on the screen. We're going to do a couple projects, take a break, couple projects, take a break, and then finish up strong with the last 2 projects, and then we're done for today. We'll do the same type of sequence for Friday. So we're splitting the cohort into 2 groups so that it's not too long to be on Zoom. So we have half the group today, and then this Friday on the 14th, the second half of the group will go. Just a special note for those of you that will be joining us for both sessions, the cohort especially, and any kind of guests and visitors. You should note that the start time for Friday has been delayed, postponed. We'll actually get going with comments about 8:30, and the program will start actually at 9 o'clock with the first presentation. So just please note that we pushed it back by about a half hour. So just note that new start date. Just a couple notes on logistics for today. What's going to happen is all the presentations and everything is going to be videotaped. So just know that everybody is being recorded. When each presenter or project team comes up to present, they will share their screen and present from their location. During that time, Alexandra is going to chat in the chat box a link to a peer evaluation form. We ask everyone in the audience if they don't mind sharing some feedback with the group, but in particular, the cohort members are required to provide some feedback for every project team as they go through the written part of their requirement, which will be due later in June. So this peer evaluation form is a really important tool to provide some feedback and some observations for the cohort as they move forward. Again, it's an optional item for those of you that are joining us. If you're from the advisory board or faculty, staff, or guests, please feel free to do so, but it's not mandatory. So And the last thing, one of the last things I want to say is there will be a time at each project for Q&A. At the end of each project, we will have about 5 or 10 minutes per each presenter for a Q&A session. What we'd like you to do, the chat feature is not available, but there is a Q&A feature available on the webinar. So if you have a question or comment for the presenter or presenters, please add that question in the Q&A box, and myself and Alexandra will forward that on to the either individual or team to respond. We encourage your feedback. We encourage your participation, so please feel free to do so. And if there's also any questions for us as far as the administration of the event, let us know. So if there's no other questions, I would like to, just before I pass the baton over to our first presenter, I want to say thank you to our team back at the college. Alexander Hagel has been an unbelievable superstar to basically reinvent our program and put us in this virtual mode. And I just want to say thank you to her for everything you've done throughout this entire year to get us in this position and help us succeed. So thank you to her. Nina Antonek and Amira Mary, who's our graduate assistant, have just done a fabulous job. So I think if we're ready to rock and roll, I would like to pass the baton over to our first presenter today. And I'm really excited to present our first project. Our first project is going to be out of the city of Avon Lake. And the presenter is Mr. Tim Pinchek, and his project is called Al-Pal. So it's the Avon Lake Police Athletic League. Tim, are you there? And are you ready to rock and roll? Hopefully the answer is yes. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Tim, and we look forward to hearing your presentation when you're ready to go. Thanks, everyone. Tim, I think you're on mute. I can hear you now, Tim, or I can hear your audio. Hey, Tim, it sounds like we're having some difficulties. We cannot hear you if you are trying to speak right now. I can see your PowerPoint presentation, but I cannot hear any audio. So this is one of the fun things about the online offerings is you don't know sometimes. I could start singing, but I'd have a feeling we'd lose half the group. Tim, are you there? I'm gonna go on, I'm gonna stop my video and mute to see what's going on, and I'll be right back. I apologize for the delay. Hey, folks, I apologize for the logistics here. I think we're starting to work things out. Just give us like 2 more minutes and we should be good to go. So apologize for the hassle, and but I think that we're ready to rock and roll here momentarily. Alexander's given Tim some final instructions, and then we hope that we can go live here in a second. So apologize for the issue. It sounds like Tim had some connectivity issues in his office. So just again, a reminder, you'll see in the chat box, once Tim gets rocking and rolling, there will be the link to the peer evaluation form. You can just click on that link. It's a Google Doc. We'll take that feedback, and then once we compile the notes, we'll send that back to each individual group of presenters, and we'll be able to forward that on so they can use that for the written portion of the presentation, and then we'll combine the oral and written part as part of the total presentation as a whole.
Can you hear me now, Rob?
Yes, I can, Tim. I can hear you. I don't see your presentation yet, but we're getting there. We're making progress.
Okay, there we go.
Now I can see your presentation.
All right, sorry guys, sorry about all this.
No problem. All right, well, let's get rocking and rolling, and I'm really excited to hear a presentation from Tim Pucci from Avon Lake. Take it away.
Right. Thank you, guys. Good morning, everybody. Sorry about the delay and the technical difficulties. I hope to lead us off in the presentation. I made the mistake of saying I was open to any time, and sure enough, they put me at the first one up on the day. So I do hope this goes well with the slightest delays that we just had. My original public management project consisted of revamping our senior facility, the old Firehouse Community Center, and the programs to be more consistent with COVID-19 guidelines and provide a safe and comfortable environment for our senior population during the pandemic and beyond. Over the course of the pandemic, and with the numbers of COVID infected rising, seniors not able to go out and experience the quality programs in Avon Lake and elsewhere, I really needed to think about it and to pivot and reinvent my PMA project. Another need in the city that was magnified even more during the pandemic was more supervision in our community, especially the parks and the open spaces. Kids and young adults didn't have anything to do but hang out in open spaces in the parks, just kind of soliciting, just different things that they were playing around with. Playgrounds, facilities, and programs were all closed during the pandemic because of the guidelines and the stipulations that were set forth by the government. One of our local residents, his name is Ron Warner, who's an entrepreneur, approached me and had the same concerns. Ron has the same vision, drive, and passion we have in our department. And some of those same concerns were providing more supervision and support in our community during the pandemic. It became increasingly more evident that our parks need more supervision with no structured programs in place during the pandemic. We met and started to brainstorm how to accomplish this. Ron had ties with the National Police Athletic League from his experience with the city of Cleveland working in the recreation department. We researched the possibilities of developing a support program, the Avon Lake Police Athletic League, in our community. A mission statement was created. We then met with city leaders. We met with Mayor Greg Zilka, Council President Marty O'Donnell, Law Director Gary Ebert, and the Police Chief Vince Molnar to gauge their interest if this was something that would be feasible to create in our community. National PAL, who Ron has associations with from the city of Cleveland, was contacted, and we devised and modeled the AL-PAL guidelines and bylaws after the National PAL structure. Soon after, a nonprofit 501c3 was established and the AL-PAL was formed. Part of the process of PAL was creating a website, a logo, marketing, different approaches, creating a bank account and making it ready to go to the public so we could solicit donations, we could gain support, we could do some of the programs and projects that we had envisioned, and also create a pipeline for the police department to work with today's youth. Next slide, please. One of the first projects that we were working on was renovating our basketball courts at one of our main parks in the city. Each year for the past 4 years, the courts at Blesser Park, which is located right next to City Hall, were added as a capital improvement. And each year it was cut out of the budget because of other needs that the city had. The basketball courts are the main courts in the city at one of the city's most popular parks. On any given day and evening, when the weather is nice, the courts are flooded with games and kids shooting hoops. Blesser Park is also home to our aquatic center, lighted baseball fields, summer concerts, pavilions, sand volleyball courts, tennis and pickleball courts, and a future playground called Alps Avon Lake Play Space that is over 25 years old that we are currently renovating at a cost of $750,000 over the next 3 years. Next slide, please. If you can scroll through these, Alexandra, that would be great. This is our ALPAL bylaws that we established from the National PAL. We modeled our bylaws after this, creating officers, the whole organization for the 501c3. I did want to show these to you guys just to let you know that this is a legit organization that supports the city of Avon Lake. As we go through these slides, we'll come upon our Blesser Park project with the basketball hoops. This particular slide, the Blesser Park basketball court renovation is sponsored by many local residents, ALPAL being the first and foremost, the city of Avon Lake, which is providing in-kind labor for the concrete base of the courts, the Avon Lake Hall of Fame, which is an organization that supports the schools in the community for athletes and achievements throughout the city over the course of the last 100 years. The head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who's an Avon Lake resident, J.B. Bickerstaff. Todd Houston, a local businessman that has a deep passion to contribute to the city. Sally Craze, a local business in our fine city of Avon Lake. Plaza Paving, who is donating time, effort, materials toward the basketball courts. Playground World, which is donating basketball standards and glass backboards. And the Becker family, who is a local family here in Avon Lake that wants to give back. Next slide, please. Part of the Blesser basketball courts is to dedicate the courts to Beth McLeod's former husband who passed away, Fred McLeod, the voice of the Cavaliers over the last many years. Next slide, please. The current court is 27 feet wide by 50 feet long. And as the picture shows, it's older with old basketball standards. As you can see in the picture to the north, there is a baseball light. Next slide, please. The project details, as I've mentioned, Plaza to be installing new asphalt. We're going to paint and seal the court with the Cleveland Cavalier colors, which is coincidentally the Avon Lake High School and the school system's colors. Install new basketball goals, glass backboards, as well as the new standards. Create a donor plaque, not only for with a tribute to Fred McLeod, but also to honor all those organizations and volunteers that have been part of this project. Next slide, please. Just an example of what the plaque may or may not look like. We are still getting input from Beth McLeod as well. Next slide, please. Another picture of the current courts, and you'll notice in the next, there are two courts established right now. One is smaller than the other. The goal for this project is to combine the courts, one large slab of concrete and asphalt, combine the courts, and then have two separate courts with 10 to 15 feet distance between them. As you can see in the pictures, we have an aquatic center to the northwest of the facility, the lighted baseball field. There were sand volleyball courts on a previous slide, and another baseball diamond. So this is truly our central park of the city currently, and we hope to improve this area because this is used by many, many folks that come in from out of the city and in the city as well. Next slide, please. Another program PAL has been involved with, which directly impacts the city, is Safety Town. The Safety Town education program is offered to Avon Lake residents entering kindergarten as well as those entering first grade that missed Safety Town last year due to the COVID goal is that each child will be able to state their full name, address, and phone number. Participants will receive instruction on how to protect themselves from strangers and meet the people who provide safety services to our city. They will ride on an actual school bus and receive instruction on school bus safety. It's held at one of our local city schools and taught through the recreation department by certified teachers. Next slide, please. Resource officers are an integral part of the Safety Town program that it aids in enhancing the police department's exposure and image. ALPAL helps to enhance police presence through programs and development, such as a boxing program development, a Big Brother program that we are currently putting together through the police department, DARE program at the high school, and other community awareness programs that we hope to continue on in the future. So the police have been a huge supporter of the ALPAL. And one thing I forgot to mention for the Blesser basketball courts, the project cost is $20,000+, and 90% of the project is funded by donations. Next slide, please. As you can see, we have Safety Town cars. These are kind of like little big wheels. The ALPAL has generously donated 14 just these cars. There's 15 to 20 cars that are brand new. Actually, there's 20 cars that are brand new. They each have the logo on it. We actually, slide does not show, but we put our logo on these cars as well. Next slide, please. A close-up of what the kids will be driving around in our Safety Town program that features houses and storefronts that were built years elementary schools here in the city. Next slide, please. Our Senior Lunch and Learn is another important program that we offer, and Avon Lake Police Athletic League wanted to get involved with this as well, along with the police department here in the city. We have different events throughout the year that we talk to different sponsors to come in and just talk about their businesses, from financial planning to story time to just different things that the seniors might be interested in, such as senior safety, different aerobics classes that we have, and wellness activities that we offer throughout the city. So part of the Lunch and Learn is that the seniors are given a free hot lunch, and they get to listen to the presenter for about 60 minutes to discuss their organization's needs and how they can help our seniors. Next slide, please. As you can see, there's a placemat that we create and that we give to the seniors so that they're putting their hot lunch on top of our placemat. So this illustrates the Avon Lake Police Athletic League as a sponsor, the Avon Lake Police Department, and a local business sponsors as well. Next slide, please. Future potential projects in the city of Avon Lake, through ALPAL, we are being very ambitious here, and we are in negotiations for some of these projects, and I'd like to share these with you. So next slide, please. This slide illustrates to the left where you see the amphitheater, the outdoor fitness, the cultural center, the cornhole, pickleball, beach volleyball, turf field, and parking. This area is 14.3 acres of land that is currently unoccupied, that is owned by our Hearns Banquet Center to the right of the area that I just mentioned. The city is negotiating currently with the owner of a Hearns Banquet facility, with the cooperation of ALPAL and some local businesses, to either purchase this land or have this land purchased through a local business and then donated to ALPAL for the renovation and construction of some of these facilities. Next slide, please. This option shows very similar features, but instead of an amphitheater, a bike park. This is located in the central part of our city. If you look to the bottom of the slide, you can see our wide open area. We actually have our public service center, and the area behind it is a gun range, which won't be there after 2 years, and it involves a giant hill, which will turn into a sledding hill for the community. And to the top of the slide, you'll see Avon Lake's Pin Oak Parkway, which is an industrial parkway. So the benefits of the city acquiring this land are many, in that we can purchase the property, have the property donated through ALPAL, and then create the amenities needed for outdoor recreation for the city. Next slide, please. Throughout the process, we have had many people that have contributed to our ALPAL and the thought of the programs and the activities and the projects that it could entail. Mayor Zilka, big supporter of our ALPAL, states physical activities, including all sports, are a way of developing teamwork and self-confidence in our youth. Young people have a great deal of energy, and the Police Athletic League around the nation have proved to be excellent formats to allow our youth to grow and develop positive relationships with each other and authority figures. Youth who come from single-parent families benefit from working with adults and display character and good judgment. The Avon Lake Police Athletic League will help provide activities to allow our youth to grow and develop and respond to responsible adults. Mayor Zilka wasn't the only one to give a testimonial. There are 3 others. Next slide, please. Todd Houston, the president of Performance Health and also owner of multiple companies under Performance Health, is a big reason why ALPAL exists. And he is another big important part of the 14.3 acres that we are discussing getting donated to the city. Todd states the Avon Lake Police Athletic League was founded on the principles of providing quality athletic, recreational, and educational activities for the city's. It is important for you to have positive interaction with police officers in a fun, safe environment while focusing on athletics, healthy life choices, and becoming productive citizens. Avon Lake PAL provides all that and then some to our youth. Next slide, please. Ron Warner, the co-founder of ALPAL and also board member and entrepreneur, states the Avon Lake Police Athletic League was developed to create a conduit between law enforcement and community through athletics, education, and other community programs. We are extremely excited about the future of this organization, the future of our city. Ron also sits on our environmental board as a chair, and he has shown an aptitude to, through his entrepreneur and his different businesses, to really form that bond in the community and help develop relationships to get things done. Next slide, please. And finally, our last testimonial is from Coach Bickerstaff from the Cavs. He's been an integral part of our basketball project. Coach Bickerstaff lives in the area. He lives down the street. He has been a big supporter of our youth basketball program, as well as the project that we'll see here in the near future. And the value of what it brings to the community. I'm very excited to be part of the Avon Lake Athletic League as we strive to bring resource and engagement between our youth and law through community programs and athletics. Next slide, please. So my final thoughts on our project here with the AL Police Athletic League. The 2020-21 COVID-19 pandemic has dictated that we change and adapt to the current times and how we function as live as society. It has magnified needs and created others here in the city of Avon Lake. We have to accept the new normal and move forward. The creation of ALPAL has provided the community of Avon Lake another support platform for guidance, programming, facilities, and safety for our residents. We are aware of the challenges ahead, but look forward to all that we can accomplish through ALPAL. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be open to questions if anybody has any. I'm sorry about the choppiness of this, Rob. It's just, I'm trying to troubleshoot over here, adapting and change and pivoting and trying to get this done.
Well, I want to say congratulations. That was an amazing way to kick off the day. I'm really excited. And I'm a resident of Medina, but I'm very jealous that I might put my house up for sale and start moving your way if that's the stuff you can have to offer. So I want to say congratulations. Well, I wanted to remind the audience to please continue to fill out that evaluation, the peer evaluation form for Tim. And if there's any questions, please put them in the Q&A section at the bottom there. I do have a question for you, Tim, to kick it off if people are bashful. This is a very aggressive plan that you have there, especially with that expansion. And what I'm concerned about is the financial sustainability, upkeep, and things like that. Did you address that in your presentation about how you think that'll work as far as keeping these facilities up and going? And is that part of the city's budget, or is that like through the ALPAL they'll cover that kind of thing?
So the Avon Lake Police Athletic League it's funded strictly from private donations and businesses that we that we solicit. So Todd Houston, as I mentioned in our presentation, is one of the board members and a cornerstone of the ALPAL. And he's been very aggressive in trying to promote different programs and projects such as the 14.3 acres that I mentioned. So with his resources and other businesses in the community, that has been the lifeline, honestly, of ALPAL. As we continue to grow, this is only not even a year into existence. As we continue to grow, we are hopeful that also have support from National PAL that has given us some seed money to start here in Avon Lake. They have seen the positive results and the good things that we are doing here, and they're very appreciative to being associated with what we're trying to do here in Avon Lake.
That's great. Well, I think that's a fabulous start to a wonderful program and a great resource for the community. And congratulate you for pivoting. I know that your initial project scope was more an internal thing with your building and kind of bringing in the community and the senior center type stuff, and your ability to kind of literally think outside the building, I guess, instead of the box is awesome. And so I want to say congratulations on that, and please keep us posted on future developments. And if there's anything we can come to support and celebrate and participate, please let us know. Is there any other questions from, or comments or feedback from the audience? Please put it in the Q&A. We'll give it a couple seconds here. Tim, do you have any comments to the group as far as your participation in the cohort, working with them? Is there any other just side notes that you'd like to add to the group before we transition? You don't have to, but I just wanted to put that out there as well. If you
No, I welcome it, Rob. Thank you so much. This has been a great experience. This is obviously the second piece of the Leadership Academy was the first part, and now this piece as well. So I'm very excited to finish up after 2 years of being in the program, and I'm honored to say that I've been part of this. I'm honored to say that I'll be the first one in our city here in Avon Lake to go through the whole program. I know there's others that are going to follow. Our cohort that we've had this year, even though it's been difficult that we haven't been together, I think that there's so many talented and knowledgeable people that I've learned from throughout this course of the time. And I just want to give a big thanks to everybody for bearing with me on some of my technical difficulties throughout the course of this. But also, as I mentioned, it's just been a great experience. Learning from everybody, and taking some of those things that I've learned and incorporated part of my daily work. It's been really nice, a nice thing to have and have it as an asset. It was awesome.
Thanks, Tim. Alexander, is there a question from the audience?
Yeah, so I have 2 audience comments and 1 question. So Jamie says, well done. It's hard to go first. Sometimes you broke the ice for the rest of us. Great project. And Kathleen says, what a great project for your community. So those are the 2 comments. And then we have 1 question from Brent. Can you describe the number and types of meetings you participated in as part of developing ALPAL?
Great question, Brent. There's a lot of one-on-one meetings with the team, with the different board members. Recruiting the board members was tough, trying to find those individuals that are influential in our community, but also would show motivation and desire to be on our board. Having some influential people in our community, such as the head coach of the Cavs, and tying into specifically to our basketball projects, that was huge. But really just over the early course of time, putting this together, identifying those people, reaching out to them. There was a lot of hit misses or misses, I should say, but trying to find those right people. There was a couple other VPs for some companies in our city that have contributed and sponsored our facilities and programs, but they just weren't able to join at this time, but they have expressed extreme interest in being part of this at a later date. It's been a very rewarding experience to see the different businesses and the residents that want to give back to the community, and many comments have been brought to my attention that anything that some of these residents or businesses can do to help out the community, they're welcome to take that opportunity to do. So it's been a great experience. When people do say no, you just learn from it, you move on, and you take that in consideration of why they said no and how they could maybe change their mind in the future, which some of them have expressed interest in doing so down the road. So great question. Thank you for that. Hello?
Sorry. I have the t-shirt. You're on mute. I just have to put it up in front of me so that I know what I'm a knucklehead. Any other questions before we transition here? Questions, comments? I think we're good. Well, Tim, I just want to say congratulations again. Thank you for starting us off for the day, and also on behalf of the other participants, thank you for raising the bar really high now. So there's literally no pressure on anybody else after you kicked it off there. You really knocked it out of the park, and literally knocked it out of the park, and we're really excited for this. So I knew that this was going to be a great cohort and some great projects, but this really exceeded my expectations. So congratulations, and look forward to seeing next steps.
Thank you.
So, yeah, congratulations. All right, you're all finished. All right, we're now going to switch real quick to our second project. So please, just as folks are coming in, there will be an individual link for the peer evaluation form. Tim's was sent out in the chat box, so please respond to that. Anybody is welcome to provide your comments. And as we tee up the next project, I'd like to let you know that also that Brent Eisenbach is the next person up, but he will also have an individual link, a Google Doc for his evaluation or his peer feedback. So you'll see that once he gets rocking and rolling. I'm really excited to bring Brent up to the stage today for his project. The Cuyahoga County Soil and Water Department organization is relatively a new customer of ours per se, and we're really excited to partner with both Brent and a couple other folks that are in PMA 6 right now. It's been a great opportunity to get to know them personally, but also kind of see how their operations work in more detail. And working with Brent over this past year, get to know his personality and his management and leadership styles. It's been a real pleasure and honor for me. And he's got an exciting project here to talk about how they're going to reimagine their work moving forward. So without further ado, Brent, are you ready to rock and roll?
Let's do this, Rob.
All right, I'll pass it to you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Cohort 5, Rob and Alexandra, all of our distinguished guests and visitors. My name is Brent Eisenbach, and I'm the Senior Program Manager for Stormwater and Technical Services at Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District. As Rob said, and you can read on the screen, my project was about reimagining the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District's stormwater management program with an eye for strategy and a strategy for growth and resilience as we move into the future with this program. And advance. Oh, no, it's going to go too far. Okay, so a brief background. Our mission at Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District is to implement programs and practices that protect and restore healthy soil and water resources. Our offices, which we're in now for about 4 years, are just off Chester in Asiatown, so pretty close to CSU. And we're in the original building, which is unrelated, but also indicative of the history of our agency. We were founded in 1949, and we were the first agency within the county that focused on conservation and natural resource protection. So it's kind of fitting that we're in this original building. A brief presentation overview. By and large, I'm following kind of the outline that's going to be required for the final paper for this program. And I'm going to add a couple things in here about the history and departmental organization, and then also Yes, I do have, sorry, I see that, and I will turn on my video. Except that it just disappeared on me. Okay, are we good to go? All right, fantastic, thanks. Still some more hiccups, even in the second program. So moving on, the original building, it's certainly fitting with the history of our agency. The slides are slow to advance right now. Here we go. The presentation overview following typically the outline for the final paper, but adding in some important contextual information regarding the history of our stormwater program, our departmental organization, and then at the end, this will be the hook to keep you interested as some future challenges as we implemented the program change. So our stormwater program is designed to assist communities with the implementation of the stormwater management plans, which are required by the Ohio EPA. And we do that by developing better methods to help guide the planning, design, construction, and maintenance of the stormwater quality control measures that are installed. You'll see that word implementation. It was in our mission statement. Here it is again in one of the departmental tasks that we do. And I want to call attention to this word implement because it really gets to the heart of what we do as an agency, which is to move beyond the planning and conceptual stage and to actually make things happen on the ground. As we talk about the employees within the department, you'll see that word come up again. We really are a bunch of doers, and we like to take care of business. With regard to the stormwater management plans required by the EPA, this is going to get a little bit technical, but I think it's useful. There's 6 minimum control measures that cities are required to implement on the ground, which will help control pollution getting into our waterways. The stormwater department focuses on 3 of those 6, which is active construction sites, what goes on a permanent basis when construction is over, and then also how cities manage their own properties, which is MCM 6. These standards have been in effect since 2003, and that gets to the history of our program. We did a little bit of erosion and sediment control prior to 2003, but once that phase 2 NPDES permit kicked off, that's when we really got started. And I wasn't there at the time, but my understanding is that it was a little bit of slow growth as the new permit that was issued by the US EPA and Ohio EPA started to get its legs and people really understood what was going on. There was a traditional management structure that focused on heavy supervision of the couple of employees that were there. And then in 2009, the department expanded the services that we provided to various municipalities to include that MCM 5, which was the post-construction features. Round about 2011 is when I joined the program. And in 2014, we had a bit of a shift with employees that were in the program, and I became the manager. So went from being a worker bee to a manager person, and that was a profound experience. And in 2015, we split the programs with the goal of trying to provide more oversight for each of those individual minimum control measures, 4, 5, and 6. But the effect that it had is that it created silos within the division where people were kind of working on their own projects, but there wasn't a whole lot of cross-pollination of ideas. So in 2017, we reintegrated the programs together under a single manager, myself, but there was still a bit of a silo effect because we had formerly individual employees still working on those unique projects, and there was a better way. We always kind of felt that there was a better way. And so this gets us to the project description, which was to explore the stormwater program, which at this point has been in existence for nearly 20 years with only minor reforms along the way, determine what works, what needed to be reformed, what should be left behind. And the goal is to develop a stronger program and position the district for future growth opportunities. As I said, in 2014, the rose was kind of pinned on me, and I was carrying the program along through a bit of a turbulent period. And so here we are now, 7 years down the road, and we're finally getting to a point of stability. So what's better than to go and mix it all up and try something new? But this opportunity and the tools that were provided through the Public Management Academy course really provided a framework rather than just chasing opportunities. So the expected purpose and goal of this project is that it's a process improvement, primarily focused on the services that we're delivering to the communities that we work with an added focus of employee development. We seem to, like I said, have a stable crew and a stable working model right now. And so we're going to look and see how that can be improved. Lots of things to take into account, though, when you're getting ready to put your program that's kind of operating smoothly in the blender and see what comes out on the other end. So the goal here, the idea is that we would use the process improvement tools that were discussed during the course. We were going to contact all the appropriate stakeholders. We're going to survey and discuss with the staff, see what their thoughts on various process improvements could be, and then also assess the feasibility. While we were doing this study and while we were envisioning change for the department, we also had a workload that we had to keep up on, and we had to balance that with the available resources. And then there's also the cost of implementation. It's not just a monetary cost from lost productivity and diverting labor to other avenues, but there's a cost and perhaps risk of extending something out that may or may not work and then having to go back and revisit again. So we did a lot of information gathering. And if that's one thing that I've learned from the Project Management Academy, is that gathering information is certainly important. So we started with the foundations. We knew who our customers were. They're typically municipalities. But when you actually go through and analyze who are the customers, what is it that they want, what is it that they tell you they want, and what is it that maybe they're not telling you, but they really do. And perhaps we're providing some services as well that they're just not interested in. And then we analyzed what our stakeholders were and the importance of those stakeholders. Not only is it community officials such as building directors, economic development directors, service directors, and so forth, but there's also general contractors, design engineers, environmental consultants, all these sorts of people that inform the work that we do and inform the work that we provide to the cities. And we had to understand if what we were going to be endeavoring to accomplish was going to harm those relationships that we had developed, or if they were going to further develop them. Additionally, we performed a SWOT analysis in order to identify, of course, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then we ran everything through a logic model to see if we do this, then what's the suspected next outcome? And when we reach that outcome, what's the next outcome after that? And to see if we could almost chess game this idea of what we wanted to do to a logical conclusion to see if it might work. And of course, once we moved through that, we were able to analyze various types of gaps and create different opportunities. The two maps that you're looking at here get to that analysis of gaps, and I want to describe them. The one that has the red coloring on it is a population density map. If you can see on the left, the population of Cuyahoga County in 1950 was just about 1.4 million people, and it was focused primarily in the city of Cleveland and the inner ring suburbs. Fast forward to 2000, which at this point, is now 20 years in the rearview mirror. I always think that's crazy when I think 2000 is 20 years ago. But there it is. You can see the population is still about 1.4 million people. The difference, though, is that they're spread throughout the entire county. The population has spread all the way out. And you can use these population density maps as an adjunct for understanding newly installed impervious surface, which is a pretty crucial foundation to stormwater management, because the pollutants that land on those impervious surfaces interact with the rainwater that falls in them, and then it goes out into the waterways. So you can see now that stormwater management plays a bigger role in everybody's life because it's spread throughout the entire county and it's affecting all of our waterways. The map with the blue colors on it, those are the communities that we work with in Cuyahoga County. And you can see we've got a really good presence on, of course, the city of Cleveland, the west side and some of the south side, but we definitely have a gap on the southeast side and the I-271 corridor. So as we started to develop the team and think about change and think about how we're providing services, or at least what we're endeavoring to do to provide services, you know, we identified that there's an area over on the southeast side in the I-271 corridor that could be an opportunity for us to pursue in the future. Continuing on with the information gathering, I created a survey that I delivered to the stormwater staff members. That was in the fall of 2020. And it was an anonymous survey. So I really wanted the employees to feel comfortable with providing unfettered feedback. So that way we could really get at the heart of what might be good and what might be bad. You know, no one wants to tell the boss that he's doing a bad job. Maybe some people do, but I digress. So we issued this survey, and here's a couple of excerpts. It was 18 questions. About a third of it was self-assessment, and 2/3 of it was programmatic assessment. And here's some excerpts. What are some ways that we're providing good customer service? Someone replied, we are dedicated to answering questions and solving problems. Gets back to that implementation that I mentioned earlier. What's something we can do to improve? Have a presence on the community social media page, such as Facebook, Instagram, or Nextdoor. Another way to improve is regular communication with our MOU communities so that they know that we're available to assist them. A lot of times, once we begin work in a city, we were hired because we fulfill a specific niche, and everyone's busy. And so be it a service director, a named city engineer, or a building director, as long as everything's going smoothly, they're just happy that we're there assisting them along. But that's really no way to continue to build a relationship. So regular communication with the MOU communities, let them know what we're up to and let them know where we're going and whether or not that nests with the vision that they have for their community. Another way to improve would be to get involved in the community in different ways. So providing wetland determinations or delineations, it would add more workload, but the flip side to that is that we would be offering more services and we'd have a stronger presence and we'd be communicating with the cities more regularly. The top question that I led off with was, what motivates you, the employee, to perform exceptional work? And we got a few varying responses, but by and large, everyone said that they wanted to provide a quality product to our customer. This was the standout that kind of summed up everyone's responses. They're motivated by providing a quality product, by implementing our program within the cities that we work in. And we do have a very passionate staff that's you know, conservationists, environmentalists, and so forth. And when you think of stormwater management, it might not be something that everybody's thinking of, but you know, really the employees in our office are passionate about stormwater management, and that's a fantastic thing to have. Another question was about what's the best way to divide up the workload. If you recall, I'd mentioned we have a couple of different tasks, the minimum control measures 4, 5, and 6. And we've played around and tinkered with those over the years. It's created a silo effect where people were kind of doing their own work in isolation. And one person said community, most of the others replied as others, saying they would like a mix of that. And so analyzing these survey responses about providing quality products to the community, interacting with the community more, we sort of began gravitating towards a community-based approach to how we were going to to divide up the workload. A couple of other questions that we had was, what is the stormwater program not doing that it should be doing? Apparently my employees do not like keeping paper records anymore. They want to go to digital records. So that's something that we will be exploring probably during 2022 or so as the next process improvement go around that we do with the program. They also said that we should have a stronger presence on social media, which was noted. And then what are we currently doing that we should be abandoned? I did mention the paper records. And there were a couple of other items that, again, we had tinkered with over the years since 2014. And the pace of public engagement is so quick now and is changing so much that really some of the things that were relevant in 2011, 2014 are not relevant anymore. So primarily things that are going to be abandoned are some old public engagement activities that we were doing, but we're supplanting those with new public engagement activities. So once the survey results came in, we had a staff meeting. It was a long staff meeting. I think we were on Zoom for close to 4 or 5 hours, and we discussed the survey. We discussed planning for 2021, the upcoming or the current program year that we are in right now. Interestingly, back in 2020, before COVID kicked off, the district as a whole did a new strategic plan. And so this was kind of our opportunity to create a strategic plan that was nested within the broader context of the district, but focused primarily on stormwater service delivery. And you know, Dr. Madden had us use this fantastic mural app during the course of instruction, and people really liked it, operating mural. You can see we had a lot of post-it notes and cross connections and little bubbles putting around things. So again, getting down and dirty and using the tools that are out there is really critical. You know, oftentimes we can sit in meetings and some of these concepts are intrinsically ingrained within us, but when you sit down and you put pen to paper, you really organize your thoughts and you kind of have a way ahead. The solution that we determined, that we landed on, was to transition to a consultancy or entrepreneurial organizational model where one employee was going to be assigned to each community that we work with. That employee was going to perform all the functions within that city. So the minimum control measures 4, 5, and 6. But behind the scenes, they'll have the backing of the whole staff. As I'd mentioned, we had some folks working kind of in isolation, and by doing so, they'd become subject matter experts, which is fantastic to have on the staff. And those subject matter experts will provide support to those employees now that are doing all the actions within a single community. Our work plan goals were updated for 2021 to include a greater emphasis on routine contact with the assigned cities. And then we also determined that we wanted to enhance our online and social media presence, primarily through the LinkedIn platform. If anyone follows Cuyahoga Soil and Water on Facebook or Instagram, we do have a lot of followers, and that's thanks to our communication manager. She's great, and she really knows how to engage on social media platforms. But the messages that come across on Facebook and Instagram are a little bit more generalistic. They're a little more adult education oriented and not specifically geared toward the stakeholder set that the stormwater program has. So we're looking to use LinkedIn as the method by which to deliver stormwater specific public engagement materials. So look for us. I'm going to be friending you on LinkedIn, and I'm going to invite you to join our page so you can follow what's going on. Implementation, we started out January 1st, 2021. We said we need to pick a date, put it on the calendar, and make it happen. So nothing like starting out a new year with a new model. There was some minor cross-leveling of previously assigned work, and then people got underway. The distribution of tasks that were previously consolidated under one employee, of course, got distributed out to everyone who was assigned specific cities to work with. And then we started to have a few informational meetings with various customers. Part of the work plan goal for 2021 is to broaden those informational meetings and to really sit down with those communities that have kind of had us on autopilot for a while and explain the new model that we're working with, reassure them that services will be uninterrupted and that the employees will have the backing of the full staff. Unfortunately, we are not what I would say fully implemented at this point. We did have one employee resign, not because of the change, it was because of a different reason. But as such, we still have folks that are covering down on other people's work. So we've just finished up our interviews for that employee's replacement. We're looking to get them on June 1st-ish or so. And then we will be fully implemented, I suppose you can say. By the end of that new employees train up period, will be fully implemented. And I look forward to perhaps revisiting some of these assumptions and moving on from there. Project measurable results, still a little bit early in the process. As I mentioned, we're not fully transitioned. The Q1 2021 metrics have not yet been fully analyzed. And anecdotally, as we've moved through second quarter here, which is a very busy time for our district in general, we call April is Earth Month, where we are just really doing programs and everything going all over the place. And then May seems to be the month of conferences, and here we are doing a presentation as well. But what I've seen anecdotally is that perhaps there's a little bit of supervision needed and a little bit of reinforcement on time management skills with some of those employees as they juggle their new portfolio and do what we always refer to in job descriptions, other assigned tasks. But the initial feedback from communities has been positive. They like the idea of only having to pick up the phone and call one person to get an answer. And who wouldn't like to do that? It's not our customers' responsibility to have to know who is the most appropriate person in our agency to contact to get an answer. So they contact a single person, and then of course that employee has the backing of the rest of the staff. Another anecdote was that with regard to stormwater permitting of new projects, February, early March is typically our busy season. I call it permitting season, when everyone's trying to get those projects approved through municipalities so they can begin building as soon as the weather breaks. And honestly, it seemed a little less busy this year. And I think that's attributed to distributing some of those plan review tasks across multiple employees and then providing them the support as needed to be able to accomplish those reviews. The benefits to our agency, of course, increased customer service, team development. One thing that we've got to do is make sure that these employees that are being assigned new tasks, we're not there to let them fall on their face. That's not good for the district, it's not good for them. And so we'll be providing training and resources probably at an earlier point in their career development than they might formerly have had in order to make this model work. But one of the benefits of front loading that training and team development is that it kind of creates a successional planning model as well. So that if in the event we had an employee resign for whatever reason, or if someone had an extended absence, someone else, from the department would be able to cover down on their work and, continue on seamlessly with uninterrupted services for our community. And so, as an added benefit there that popped out from the bottom. Now on for the future challenges. So best laid plans, of course, right? We do all the analysis tools, we come up with the solution, we see some early successes, but of course there's going to be obstacles along the way. Here's a couple that we've identified. We have a new employee that's being onboarded here soon. And how do we integrate a new employee who is not as skilled as the rest of us into the model? And with talking to Rob and Alexandra and so forth, really it's going to rely on a strong mentorship program and not just teaching them the hard skills to complete an inspection or complete a plan review, but sitting down with them and introducing them to the industry and having regular contact with them. And again, that's going to be something that has to be managed and worked through. If you say that you're going to do it, but you don't put it on the calendar, it's probably going to disappear. And then you have a person who's just working their fingers to a nub, not really perhaps truly understanding what they're doing. Another interesting challenge is how are we going to differentiate the roles as related to seniority? And it kind of gets to that point about if everyone's doing the same thing in different communities, why does this person have a particular job title and I have a different job title? Why is that person being paid something and I'm being paid something different? And so, we really have to find differentiations of those roles. And I think where we're going to find that is in providing opportunities to specialize within the stormwater or environmental realm that's not specific to the services that we provide to the community. So for example, we have a staff member who's interested in urban agriculture. So letting that employee develop his skills and acumen with regard to urban agriculture could be that differentiation to allow them to move up. And then the jury's out on this one, mitigating familiarity. When you have a regulator or an inspector that's working with the same city, I think there's positives with that. They're building cooperative relationships with the folks that they're working with. But does there become a point where there's too much familiarity, which could negatively impact the products that are being delivered? So like I said, the jury's still out on that one. There has been instances in the state of Ohio in general where the governor has kind of shaken up the bag and mixed up the state level employees a bit. And that definitely created some strife for a while. So I'll report back out on this one, at a future PMA session. The conclusions, so we made it, we got to the end here. I've really found that taking this PMA class, it's illuminated that there's really a science of management. There's all the tools, there's the analysis, there's everything that physically must happen to create a solid manager versus the art of leadership, which is perhaps motivating the team to a common cause or providing inspiration or vision for the team. So it's good that those distinctions have been made. And myself as a manager, knowing where I'm lacking a little bit, which was certainly on the science side of it in my self-assessment, I'm going to focus some more time on that to sharpen those skills and to really practice the tools that have been given to us so that they're in the toolbox. With using all those tools though, I think there's an idea for constant improvement. I'd mentioned a little bit ago about moving away from paper records, so another constant improvement. And I think what is going to be happening is that using these tools will temper those changes. So follow the process, follow the analysis, so that way, I'm not just sitting in my office sending out change after change after change, which could be potentially frustrating to the employees. So going slow, being methodical, and using the tools that we were given, I think will create a good opportunity in the future. Normally, I end my presentations by saying better water quality is better quality of life. When you can get in your waters and enjoy them for the beneficial uses, it just makes life happier. But for this presentation, I'm going to say that better management equals better outcomes. And I think that everything that I've explained really highlights the importance of Public Management Academy. And we have my co-partner, the other senior program manager from our office. He's in PMA 6, and we'll certainly look at other continued education opportunities that CSU has to offer. So I'll open it up to questions. I hope I didn't run too long. I think maybe I did, but Rob, back to you.
Excellent presentation, Brent. As usual, I love the analytical and the being extremely thorough. You always bring that to the presentation. So I really think you did a great job to put this together from start to finish, from A to Z. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your feedback and results as you implement this with your team. To me, process improvement projects are really fun because it's like jumping in the deep end and have to be forced to swim. And but then also the idea of the constant improvement that, okay, we're going to look at it this phase, we're going to look at it this way, and tweak things as you go along. So appreciate the fact that you took the leadership on this to help your organization. I wanted to send out a reminder to folks, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A box at the bottom. We're happy to pass them along to Brent. And then also, please fill out the evaluation link. I'm gonna give everybody a minute or so to ponder them. I personally don't have any questions. I believe that you did a great job of putting this thorough presentation together. So I think it's pretty neat. I just would ask that you keep us posted as things unfold, and I'd like to highlight this as we move forward to kind of see how this works out, and then share these best practices with our community partners. So that's my only comment right now. I would like to give a couple shout outs though. I know that Director Ripka is on the call right now, and I just want to say thank you to her for investing in both Brent and Jared, and supporting them in the process, and then also the confidence in us that you allow them to dedicate some time and energy and resources to invest in this. So Jan, I see you raised your hand. Alexander, do we have a way, there a question there or a comment?
Yeah, so Jan can chat something in the Q&A section if they would like, but we do have a few comments. So Tim says, great job, Brent, very informative. Elena, great tie-ins to PMA. A lot of good, solid information shared and learning experiences. Kathleen says, very informative. Thank you, Brent. Angelia says, not only is the project itself commendable, but you were also very calm and confident. Great job with the project and the presentation. So just lots of praises and support coming from your cohort members.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much. You know, I've going through these and using the tools, and now getting a chance to create the presentation and work on the final paper. It's almost giving me the itch to move on to the next constant improvement task.
That's what I love about it. Like, once people get the bug, they just get rocking and rolling, and it has a catalytic effect on the organization. It just starts to catch on fire. So I really appreciate that, your enthusiasm for this.
Fantastic, thank you.
So Alexander, do you want to read a couple more comments that popped up?
My Linda just added a great presentation, and Jan says, I am so proud of Brent. He has been a blessing to me and I trust his decisions. Super leader. The Academy has been beneficial to both he and Jared.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that feedback, and I agree. It's been a pleasure to work with both of them. So congratulations, good job. We look forward to seeing you in the next Leadership Academy. So we're going to skip the break to get, well, congratulations, Brent, first of all. Thanks, great job. Nailed it and hit it on the park. We're going to stay on track. So we're ahead of planned break right now, but if you need to take a 5-minute coffee break or grab something, feel free to do that. But we are going to continue on with the program. As we transition from Brent to the next presentation, I do want to give a quick shout out to a couple visitors that are here with us. I noticed in the crowd that we had Erica Walsh and Lamont Dodson. Erica is OCPM graduate in the previous configuration and was a real champion to help bring back OCPM back. Erica now works at the Columbus Airport. So I'd like to give a shout out to her, say thank you for your participation today and your leadership to bring OCPM back up and running. And Lamont Dodson is Deputy Chief over at the Cleveland Municipal School District, and is one of our inaugural cohort that just graduated last year. So Lamont is also part of our advisory board and was part of the initial CPM graduating class from last year. So I just want to say hello, thank you, and we appreciate all your support. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to our next presenter. And our next presenter is Mr. Christopher Pfeiffer from the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. And Christopher is a police officer there within their department. And his presentation is entitled Police Training, Transparency, and Trust. So I'm really excited to see what Christopher put together, especially in the contemporary issues. This is such a timely process, especially with what's going on in our country. So Chris, if you're ready to rock and roll, please share your video with us so we can see you, and let's rock and roll.
Am I still on mute?
Nope, you're all good.
All right, I'm good. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. It is quite an honor. I am Christopher Pfeiffer. I am from the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority Police Department. Once again, I'm in PMA 5 for this presentation, and I am pleased to be here on the beginning of National Police Week. So it is quite an honor to be presenting my topic, police training, transparency, and trust. What do we do? The Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority Police Department, or the RTA Police, is the police agency of the gcrta. We are here to provide for the protection and preservation of all property and life within or on transit vehicles and transit property. Trans Police mission statement is above here. The mission of the gcrta Trans Police Department is to provide safe and orderly environment within the transit system, to promote the confidence of the riding public, and to enhance the use of the entire system. Central to this is the protection of life and property through the prevention of crime and terrorism. The transit police will work in collaboration within the gcrta and our regional partners to respond and recover from man-made and natural disasters. Who do we do it for? We have jurisdiction in 59 municipalities covering 487 square miles. RTA's mission, simple, connecting the community. Connecting the community, along with this project, I will do it through training, transparency, and trust. RTA's values. Achieving a safety culture for this project, service excellence will be included in this program, and teamwork through employee development. I'll expand advocacy along with RTA's values and be fiscally responsible. This program I'm about to present does not cost the department or the authority any funds to implement. RTA's values continued: responsibility, accountability, and respect. Responsibility and accountability meet commitments to continually strive to improve with dignity and respect. That is our core value as a police officer. Why? As you can see the quote on the screen, it's important to me. I've carried it throughout my life, throughout the Army, now into the police force. And it's by G.K. Chesterton. A true soldier fights not because he hates what's in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him. I'm passionate about this. I believe in this. I live this. I will continue to build trust through being transparent with our community, having open conversations, and soliciting feedback, moving forward together. I begin this project in an effort to develop a better response solution that takes into account the needs of mental health, members of the special populations, and the police department and the larger community. I seek to complete this project looking at our preliminary goals. I identified 7 preliminary goals before I began this project. 1, I wanted to meet RTA's values, visions, and goals. I want to address the vital few objectives for the RTA. I want to enhance customer and community services. I want to maintain a positive community image, not only for the RTA, but also through our police department. I want to improve safety and employee wellness. I want to develop community policing and new training standards. And finally, increase community confidence in the GCRTA and the transit police as a whole. First, we have to identify why we need to improve police and community relations. What is missing? Completing the SWOT analysis was beneficial in identifying what mechanisms were in place and truly identifying what we can improve upon to make a difference now. We have two choices. First option being just the status quo. This is the easiest option, and we can always hope that change will come on its own, or something else will be mandated by a higher power. Or we can have option two. We can invest in the future today and work to make lasting change. We do a lot of things right, not just in police, not just at the RTA, but as a community as a whole, on both sides. We try to cover new and emerging trends in government. The needs of the community will continue to change. I seek to address and modify these needs of the community we serve. Project overview, simple: training, transparency, and trust. The top three goals and primary focus of the RTA PD in the scope of this program: create greater training opportunities and modified delivery of service to meet the changing requests of the community, enhance outreach and display of information with website updates, create a crisis intervention team, a bicycle patrol unit, interacting with transgender population policy, employee wellness policy, and finally, a community policing model. Decades of research suggests that people are more likely to obey the law when they believe that those who are enforcing it have authority and that is perceived to be legitimate. Building upon trust and legitimacy is one of our core foundations. Law enforcement agencies should work with community residents to identify problems and collaborate on implementing solutions that produce meaningful results within the community. Furthermore, the responsibilities of law enforcement is far-reaching, and the need for more effective training is critical. As following along with education and training, the support and proper implementation of officer wellness and safety is a multi-partner effort, but it is important. Implementing new technologies can give police departments an opportunity to fully engage and educate communities in a dialogue about their expectations for transparency and accountability. With rights come responsibilities. An established policy must reflect the community values. Beginning this process, I once again reviewed the SWOT analysis. Some of our greatest strengths are command leadership, our employees, greatest assets we have. We can always replace the equipment. We can improve the service level, and we can always get more training. We're going to build upon what we have. Weaknesses are staffing levels. Our police department is shrinking due to retirements, due to resignations, due to the overall trend of law enforcement shortages. We have a youthful and inexperienced department. This is why I'm focusing on the training and education for our agency. Some of our equipment is outdated. We are in the process of updating the technology. And finally, lack of training and facilities. If we don't have the funds to complete the training, or if we don't have the place to hold the training, we can't have training today. In addition to the above, opportunities and threats, we must also examine social attitudes and culture, trends, expectations. We're going to focus on laws, mandates, policies, bureaucracies, state of the economy, ridership, and funding. And ultimately, everybody in this cohort can understand the lasting effects of COVID-19. But we are here because we want to improve everything we've been doing, but that is also a threat. Throughout 2020, I met with dozens of people who understand our responsibility in achieving department and agency goals and objectives. A key concern was the image of the agency among the general public and RTA riders. What is the purpose? Who were the leaders I needed to buy in from, and the actions I needed, and what the projected positive outcome was. This was done by creating an action plan to create a guiding principle and review the key components and expected outcomes of this project. I use a Gantt chart to track all 4 phases of the program. Phase 1 was the initial contact and timeline overview. Phase 2 was initial meetings with partnerships, one-on-one meetings, emailing contacts, meetings, assignments of tasks. Phase 3 was program and policy design, planning, master documents, and training. Master documents finalized, reviewed. Finally, the training curriculum and certification. And lastly, phase 4, which we are in currently, is the final review and approval of department and implementation. What is behind the badge? A police officer is expected to be a psychologist, a pharmacologist, a teacher, a counselor, a lawyer, an EMT, and a guardian, possibly all in one shift. Training is the foundation and an expanding base that will strengthen and reinforce all we do. Excuse me. Training, I focus on the in-service training that our department provides. As previously mentioned, interacting with transgender populations, the bicycle patrol unit, the employee wellness, and CIT. These will all enhance police legitimacy within the entire community. As restrictions are lifted and proposed policies are implemented, additional training will be offered to all members of this department. Provided limited in-person training throughout 2020, which has now gone online in 2021, as we know from this cohort. PMA has been very successful. These will meet the RTA's objectives and goals, increase employee growth and personal and professional development. The department in-service training address use of force, duty to intervene, de-escalation, implicit bias training. These are all new training programs that were implemented in the previous year. These new restrictions were placed on our department, not by the DOJ, not by the state of Ohio, but it's by something we needed to do for ourselves. But we also had to face down the pandemic, which did not allow many external training opportunities. We as a department are committed to providing a minimum of 40 hours of training to every officer per year. That far exceeds the state mandate. We're going to examine the policy. Interacting with transgender persons policy. To establish guidelines and procedures for the GCRTA Police Department personnel while interacting with transgender persons and members of the LGBTQ community. Some of the policy characterizations are classifications and arrests of transgender persons. We are focusing on this because this is members of our community that we don't want to leave out, but they are special. Because they're special and they are part of our members, it is very important that we cover the liability of our agency and the officers and protect constitutionally the people we are dealing with. By doing so, it involves arrest, search and seizure of those people, transporting transgender persons, and ultimately booking them and housing them. Officers will discreetly intake personnel that the person is transgendered. Upon policy implementation, we will place a liaison with both the LGBTQ community and the department to further the discussion and guide policy improvements. The Bicycle Patrol Unit can enhance community policing and patrol operations. Currently, no policy exists at our agency, and bicycles have only been used for large-scale events such as parades, protests, RNCs, or crowd control. There is truly a better application for these assets and a fantastic community policing tool of using a bicycle. Anticipated this policy and unit creation to assist in the opening of the RTA Greenway. The Red Line Greenway is a multi-use 1.8-mile trail located on the vacant railroad right-of-way. The Red Line Greenway travels across Cuyahoga River on the RTA viaduct, currently used for heavy rail trains. The Red Line Greenway will connect the RTA Red Line rapid transit stations and provides primary commuting corridor from West 65th to West 25th, and then ultimately down to Cleveland's downtown. Employee assistance and wellness policy. Who do the police call when they need help? We need to take care of each other before it's too late. The job of police officer is extremely demanding and can significantly impact the individual's mental health. This employee assistance program policy would provide a variety of services to our police officers to ensure that they are healthy and able to manage the stresses that accompany police work. Group of officers and mental health professionals who specialize in counseling police officers in managing their emotions after experiencing a job-related traumatic incident, such as death, use of force incident, officer-involved shooting, or any similar event. The Employee Assistance Program creates a network of police officers who are available to assist police officers in managing personal issues that may be unrelated to the profession, but may impact an officer's ability to effectively perform their job, such as divorce, addiction, medical issues, or family health issues. Policy implementation for this program would be the Crisis Intervention Team Training Program. Developing this program, there's a need for it. In 2020, one CIT officer was trained at the RTA Trans Police Department. Homeless, criminal activity, and other social issues have skyrocketed during the pandemic, placing a substantial burden upon our police department to address these needs. In response to overwhelming demand, police agencies have begun instructing officers in crisis intervention training. CIT is a community initiative to improve outcomes of police agencies, the interactions with people living with mental illness. CIT is a partnership between law enforcement, care providers, and other stakeholders. CIT training provides our officers more tools to do their job safely and effectively. CIT training will improve safety and avoid unnecessary use of force. Handling mental health calls subjects an officer and department to significant liability. Officers are trained to identify basic mental health issues. Police officers are not equipped to deal with many of these issues. Police officers are not social workers. Police officers are not counselors or therapists. We're not psychologists, but this training will help everyone on the road. Officers ultimately end up transporting subjects to a hospital and other treatment facility where the subject is typically treated and released due to limited treatment options and bed space. Officers are then required to complete detailed reports and paperwork dealing with a crisis intervention, arrest, or detainment. Focus on technology, improvements, and reforms. RTA is transitioning from their current web program to the next-gen website. I sought improvement with the IT department to improve our image on the new web page in next-gen to bring our Transit Police website forward. Building upon the reforms and improvements, the technology overhaul is close to being completed. The new pages of the next-gen site will streamline connectivity and transparency. Updating the pages to reflect contact information, outreach opportunities, and ultimately social media links. Continue with reforms and improvements. We want to identify how to file a complaint accommodation with the Transit Police Department, in person, over the phone, and online. These are available now on the new website. Our previous form was very limited, excuse me, and had to be brought out to the individual by an officer, filled out in person and handwritten on scene. This process was time consuming and did not receive the proper time and attention. The fear of reporting a crime or felony report or complaint has been removed by having an open data form that can be completed remotely, filed by mail, email, or in person with a new online form. Eliminating the fear of police responding to a workplace or home, this allows officers to collect the information and remain on the road to handle all their assignments. Form completed for online reporting and submission. The web page is being developed for dropdowns and uploading photos or video. This is currently not monitored 24/7. We're expected to go online in the next coming months. And these are for quality of life crimes or theft for motor vehicle, or a crime when a subject is no longer on scene and the threat has been eliminated. Continuing transparency and trust. Excuse me. Proposed annual report. This one was a lot of fun for me. I really enjoyed working on this annual report. I created a 50-page document including dedicated information on the department and their activities during the previous year. The sections include organizational charts, organizational overview, calls for service and crime data, focusing on the administrative division, traffic safety, patrol division, office professional standards, our investigative sources, specialized units, the color guard and honor guard, training unit, community engagement, awards, milestones, and memorials, all important to our agency, but a great step moving forward for transparency. Some information selected from the annual report, as you can see, we can clearly notify the public of our calls received, how they're handled, and obviously office professional standards, how many complaints were received by the public against our officers and how are they handled. Continue with transparency and trust, identified 4-step process, building upon transparency and trust. Working with our marketing and IT departments, we're able to identify deficiencies in information sharing and develop a long-term marketing plan to address those issues. These include an increase in social media posts, a timeline for outreach events, and marketing materials to be published, and linking documents to our new next-gen website. Outreach has been a significant focus for our agency over the past several years. With the completion of this program, it has increased through the marketing plan, which is bringing officers and community together for positive interactions. These are designed to build trust and mutual respect. Our department has noted a significant improvement in community relationships and our ability to work together. 2 excellent examples are the Safe Place success stories and social media posts for upcoming events. If you're unfamiliar, Safe Place is a national program designed to assist youth in crisis with immediate response by police for an individual seeking help on any RTA vehicle or station. Updated policies to comply with the Ohio Collaborative Community Policing Advisory Board. They're also involved in the 2020 in-service. We did bias-free policing and investigation of employee misconduct. We also implemented a body-worn camera program. The RTA board approved purchase of the equipment of the body-worn cameras, which will improve transparency overall. In spirit of that transparency, collaboration, and the desire for the community's trust, I created this transparency page. The document addresses many questions we frequently receive about how we serve the GCRTA community, including hiring, training, use of control, community outreach, and policies. I anticipate this, excuse me, I anticipate this document being adopted and published once it's approved by the Chief of Police. I believe this information is a positive step forward, fostering an even stronger relationship with our community. I created an FAQ page also to help guide the public and the community we serve and our officers in the most requested information. I believe that these guiding documents will assist in achieving transparency goal. Community policing model. Officers respond to calls for service and reported criminal activity, but they're expected to genuinely engage in community-oriented policing and problem-solving activities to improve problems or situations. This is the policy currently awaiting approval. Community policing events were mostly canceled during the pandemic. All large-scale community events, gatherings, safety fairs, career days, school appearances were all canceled and unable to fulfill our community policing outreach initiative. We look forward to the creation of a dedicated policy and upcoming events to include Coffee with a Cop, youth outreach and identification, memorial parades, trunk or treat, and once again, the GLBTQ outreach. Community policing best practices and partnerships. We want to modify the policing culture and ways officers deliver services to the community. All officers and management support proactive strategies for relationship building and community partnerships. Officers provided winter hats and gloves to the homeless individuals during the winter months and arrange for temporary shelter instead of sleeping on our rapid stations. Deliver policing services in a fair and impartial manner with our community policing model. We also seek to attend community meetings with RTA departments, outside law enforcement agencies, community stakeholders. This project has established a crisis intervention team program that is fully online and requiring all officers to attend from our police department. We provide valuable training. We modified our delivery of services to the community, and we'll continue to adapt and face the next challenge. Many policies are under review and will be implemented to create positive relationships and a clear path forward for lasting societal change. Also, establishing a culture of transparency will foster greater accountability, build public trust and legitimacy. Understanding who we are and where we stand is simply not enough to accomplish a culture change. We will continue to increase our web presence through social media and promote transparency. The impact of the community. The vision of this project was to address policy modifications and adaptations, new legal standards, and the future of community policing. The areas identified in the project are to allow greater transparency in the Transit Police Department and the community, strengthen the bond between the communities we serve and the future of the Greater Cleveland RTA, stakeholders, and law enforcement partners. This project will be meeting a new industry standard and public expectations. These will be measured and achieved through strong policies and partnerships, proactive, problem-oriented policing to reduce crime and social disorder throughout the transit system in a fair and impartial manner. I thank you for your time and attention. I open it up now for questions or any comments.
Thanks, Christopher. Before we do have a couple of questions, but I just want to say thank you. You personally have been such a champion for the program and your project. You came to me right at the beginning of the program, and you already had a SWOT, you already had a strategic plan, you already had a lot of the tools in place. You were ready to go to implement these tools. And I just want to say thank you for being proactive and engaged in this process from the get-go. I also want to give you a quick shout out as we move forward with Daphne and Vashon's project. I want to say thank you for your contributions there, and as a consultant with them, I really appreciate your team effort and going above and beyond. So we do have a couple questions, and I'm going to pass that over to Alexandra.
Okay, so far we have one question and one comment. So our question comes from Danielle. Has RTA participated in the current CIT training being offered by the Adams Board of Cuyahoga County, which includes a stipend to the participating law enforcement department? Is RTA aware of the newly opened diversion center? So that's from Danielle.
Hi, Daniel. I appreciate your time. Can you hear me okay? All right. Yes, like I previously mentioned, Prior to the beginning of this program, we only had one CIT officer. We have now mandated this policy and this unit, and is now required for all officers to attend this training. Because the Adams Board is limited on seating engagements, even for the online community, every agency has to have an opportunity to attend. So we cannot send 60 officers from our agency at one time. We do have to share. So it's going to take months to roll out to get all of our officers through their agency, but they are actively participating in this every training session that is being offered from my agency. We are aware of this new diversion center. It is very difficult, but like I said in my PowerPoint presentation, unfortunately, even getting them into a center, they were released sometimes within the same day. There was an individual that I transported 4 times in a matter of 6 days for mental health emergency. He didn't want to stay. So we're out there, we're making a difference, and we're trying to save everybody we can. Thank you, Danielle.
So we have a comment from Kathy. These are very challenging times for police officers. Thank you for your service and for your efforts in promoting transparency and enhancing community relations.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And then we have a question from Brent. And if anyone has any last minute questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A box. So Brent asks, does GCRTA police practice restorative justice?
We do. Ultimately, the police are here to help. We are here to serve our community, and we will serve our community in any way possible. We are fully functioning in all the programs that are out there currently. We do believe in restorative justice. We are working with our stakeholders, the criminal justice system, to make a difference every day, because status quo is not working. We need to continue to move forward. Thanks, Brent.
Well, if there's any other questions, oh, I see something popped up. Alexander, go ahead.
Yeah, so it looks like Elena has a comment. Your compassion for what you do and the impact to the community shines through and is admirable. Thank you for what you do and what you've developed for the community and to assist the RTA police.
Thank you. Like previously discussed, it is a very difficult time, and police work is always going to be ugly, but we need to continue. We need a clear path forward. We need a path that is healing and compassionate. And once again, we'll continue to do our jobs, treating people with respect and dignity.
Thank you. If there's any other last minute Q&A or comments, please complete that. Also, too, please feel free to add your commentary in the peer evaluation form. The link is in the chat. So we want to make sure that Christopher has these comments as he moves forward. But Chris, just on behalf of our team, I just want to say thank you for your service to the community, to the organization, and just your dedication, just really knocked out of the park as far as the PMA portion of things. And we love having you in the Leadership Academy as well. So
I appreciate it. Thank you.
As we transition to our next project, we're going to stay on track. And so if you need to take a break, feel free to do so. Otherwise, we're going to continue on just so that we can get out of here before lunch. And if you all know me, I love lunch. So that is something that we have to stay on track with. But before I transition to our next presenter, I did want to give a shout out. As you know, the Certified Public Manager Program is a national program. It's part of a national consortium. And I just want to give a quick shout out that we have a guest here with us today, Sarah Lynn Smith, who represents the state of Washington Certified Public Manager Program, has gotten up super early to be with us today. So Sarah Lynn, you're a hero, and I can't believe a champion for jumping up this morning. And so I hope that your coffee and breakfast is as good as my lunch is. And I just want to say thank you for supporting us today and your leadership on the consortium. I'm so honored to work with you and really taking this program on national scope. So thanks again for your support. So folks, this is a national program and it's sort of a big deal. So I'm really glad to be able to share these folks with you. Our next presentation is Miss Kathleen Pucci, who is counsel over at the city of Brooklyn. And I love these projects because they're so on point as to what contemporary issues are. And as many of you know, recycling is a big deal, but also clean recycling is even bigger. So Kathleen took on this project as counsel to help her community. And just want to say that she's done a fantastic job of being a champion, and I think creating a benchmark for the community. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Kathleen Pucci to present, and she's talking on the subject called Rethinking Recycling. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. Just a moment here while I share my screen. So most of us really probably do not give much thought to what happens to the materials we place in our recycling cart. And this in part has led to a serious issue with contamination, which has become a problem for cities across the country. Something that contributes to this issue is the use of these symbols. I think when most of us see these symbols, we automatically assume that the item we're holding in our hand is actually recyclable, and this is actually a myth. The first symbol on the left, that symbol means that technically that item can be recycled somewhere, but not necessarily in your community. The symbol in the middle only means that the item was made from recyclable materials. The symbol on the right is probably the most confusing of all, because I think when most of us see this, we assume, oh, it's got a number in it so it can be recycled. And this is not what this symbol means. This is basically a plastic resin identification code. And all this tells us is the type of materials that went into making that product. The title of my project is Rethink Recycling, Recycle Right Brooklyn. Contamination impacts cities both operationally and financially. Operationally, some cities have had to curtail or even end their curbside recycling programs. And financially, this has resulted in rising costs and additional contamination fees. When curbside recycling first started, the recycling bins were divided. So there were two opportunities for sorting prior to the materials being collected. First, the residents sorted prior to taking the bin to the curb. Second, city workers then sorted while they were collecting, and they left behind any non-recyclable items in the bin, which the resident then threw in the trash. This changed when cities began to implement automated collection for both trash and recycling. Automated collection was implemented for two basic reasons. The first was to save money because less workers would be needed, and some cities thought that this would also result in reducing the frequency that they collected recycling, and that residents would also recycle more because of the size of the recycling carts. For safety, automated recycling reduces on-the-job injuries, which results in reduced workers' compensation claims and costs, and also reduced premiums. And for safety, you had one worker who's safe in the cab. So no longer would you have one or two other people either walking behind the truck, or what happened in most cases, they were basically hanging off the back of the truck and then hopping on and off as they moved from house to house. Most residents were not aware that the majority of our recycling was sent to China. And the US was counting on China to continue to accept our recyclables, even though contamination was already a problem. With single stream recycling, contamination increased and China began warning the US that we needed to address this problem. China implemented 2 initiatives. The first they called the Green Fence, and this was in 2013. About 6 or 7 years prior to this, they had changed their standards on the levels of contamination that they would accept for incoming material. However, it was ineffective because it basically wasn't enforced. So with the Green Fence, they increased inspections of their incoming scrap, and this did not work. So in 2017, they announced a new initiative, which they called the National Sword. It was effective in 2018, and it did 2 things. First, it banned the import of mixed paper and certain types of plastic. And it also set the contamination level very low at 0.5% for most of the other recyclables that they were willing to import. And this is such an extremely low threshold that curbside recycling just can't meet this threshold. To give you a little bit of history of recycling in the city of Brooklyn, we established our curbside recycling in 1990, and it was mandatory. We were the first in Cuyahoga County and the second in the state of Ohio. Lima, Ohio was the first city in the state to institute mandatory curbside recycling. We saw this as a critical step to preserve the life of our municipally owned landfill. It might surprise you that not all residents supported this, and most people generally thought, yeah, recycling's kind of nice. However, they wanted it to be voluntary. They did not want it to be mandatory. We knew and we recognized that in order for it to successfully preserve space in our landfill, that we would have to make it a requirement. Our landfill did end up closing earlier than we had anticipated, and this was in 2010. This is when we began taking our trash to Cleveland along with our recyclables. In 2020, we were notified by the city of Cleveland that they would no longer be able to accept our recycling. They had been unable to secure a new contract with a MRF, which stands for Materials Recycling Handling Facility, and this was due to the extremely high levels of contamination in their recycling stream. I later read that the estimate of contamination was 60% or greater, which is really an astronomical figure. Cleveland at first received no bids. Then they later received 1 bid that was going to cost $169 a ton, and the recycling would have been shipped to Cincinnati. So we were kind of scrambling because they didn't really give us very much notice on this. We received some quotes which ranged from $52.75 a ton to $100 a ton. However, these contracts also contained additional fees for contamination of $75 a ton. So we were going to be going from receiving modest revenue for our recyclables to now paying for their disposal. While we're now paying at the low end of the range, we're also traveling 200 miles a week to our new MRF, which is Kimball in Twinsburg. And this has created a lot of wear and tear on our automated trucks. And the automated trucks are not designed and built to travel those distances. They're designed for the short stop and starts between houses. This just shows you a map, and my initial point is right here, the white. This is our City of Brooklyn service garage, and this is the red dot is the Ridge Road Transfer Station, which is the Cleveland facility where we used to take our recycling, and you can see the route. We're now traveling all the way to Twinsburg, so it's really quite a distance. I compiled some statistics over the last 5 years, and these will cover 2016 through 2020. To give you a perspective, this is the annual cost of what we pay for our garbage disposal. And in the chart, you can see that our rate per ton has not changed. we pay $42.29 a ton to dispose of our garbage. Our tonnage also doesn't really fluctuate that much. We did have a jump in 2020, but this was due to the city of Cleveland taking our recyclables that we had collected and including them in the trash for 3 months. So for this 5-year period, we've paid $705,210. So disposing of trash is not an inexpensive proposition. This chart shows our curbside recycling tonnage and revenue for the same period. And you can see that we previously received a very nominal amount, 56 cents per ton for our recyclables. And so for the 4 years, which was through 2019, we received $1,466, which, you know, is really not significant. However, the important thing is we were not paying to dispose of it. You can see that in 2020, this all changed. We're now paying $52.75 a ton, which cost us $36,074 last year. And this was only for 9 months. These are the same figures in a chart. On the left is the tonnage, and on the right is the revenue/expenses. And you can see the significant difference in the red with what we're now having to pay. This is a little more detailed analysis of our recycling efforts. We're a city who takes this very seriously, and we make every effort possible to recycle every possible type of material. So just going through the different types of materials, the first column is our curbside recycling that we pick up from our residents. The second is the compost. Compost includes grass clippings, branches, twigs, and leaves that we collect from our residents spring through fall. Drop off are the materials that residents bring to our service department and drop them off, just what it sounds like. The next column, those are the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District events that they sponsor that we participate in. And these are the computer roundups, hazardous waste, those types of materials. Special waste includes motor oil, antifreeze. Scrap includes everything from tires to furniture, appliances, and any large item like that. In-house is something that we started tracking in 2017, and that is all of the recycling that we collect from within our city departments and facilities. So you can see the total we've diverted from landfills for each year, the percent of the total recycled, which for the average over those 5 years is 44.4%. I also included the total and the percentage of what we landfill. And you can see the average of what we landfill for the 5-year period is 55.52%. Now, my next chart is really going to tell the story of recycling. Anytime you see a community that reports those very high levels of recycling, a lot of people assume that most of it comes from curbside, and that's just not true. You'll find that these communities, for the most part, do participate in composting. So you can see from the 5-year reporting period that curbside recycling accounted for 25%, which is still a good amount, but our compost is what accounted for 71% of those recycling efforts. So in looking at this problem, I wanted to make sure that we were proactive in our approach. And I didn't want us just to be sitting around and waiting for these contamination charges that basically are being held over us in the contract. They're very ambiguous because they really don't give you a number threshold. They just say, well, if we think the contamination level is too high, we're going to start charging you those additional contamination fees. I also could see that this issue and the rising costs that result from it could also lead us to start considering charging our residents for trash and recycling pickup. Many communities in Northeast Ohio already do that. We do not. We still have our own city employees who collect it every day, 4 days a week. Then on the 5th day, they work on other projects. And I wanted to see us try and avoid going down that path where we're going to have to charge residents for trash. So my project is to reduce the contamination in the curbside recycling stream. And we're going to have an education campaign on contamination and why it's such an important issue and why we need to address it. And then that's going to follow an OOPS cart tagging program. So the cart tagging program will be for 8 weeks, where we will monitor the contents that residents put out in their recycling carts. We're going to hire 4 seasonal part-time employees who will work 4 hours a day ahead of our recycling truck. They'll work 4 days a week. And they don't have to touch any garbage or any recycling. They'll open the cart. If they have to move things around to get a closer look, they'll have what's called a stir stick. And if there is some form of contamination in the recycling cart, they will leave what's called an OOPS tag. And it's very simple because they're printed with all the different types of contamination. And also they'll circle this actual specific item, not just the category. And the tag will instruct residents to correct the problem and put the cart out the next week. One of the things that will probably aggravate residents, but it is also a component that makes these programs successful, is the fact that we're not going to collect it if it's contaminated. The recycling assistants will roll it back just a little bit so our driver doesn't pick it up. And studies show that when the resident actually has to be the person who corrects the issue, and they're basically forced to read what's on the OOPS tag, that this has a greater impact in influencing their recycling habits, as opposed to us just leaving a tag after we've corrected it, explaining, oh, you had some contaminants in your cart. They're really never forced to deal with the issue themselves. So after my project, this will also serve as a demonstration project for other cities in the county to follow. Some of the most common reasons for contamination in recycling: some people are just not aware of what's appropriate to recycle. And as city leaders, this is very frustrating because we have active, ongoing, multifaceted campaigns to communicate this to residents. But a lot of times they either just don't pay attention, or they see the information, but they assume that they know how to recycle. They don't realize that something is different. So that's very frustrating to us. Some people just don't care, and then you have others just will not comply. A large problem nowadays, though, is something called wish cycling. So wish cycling is the act of putting something in your recycling bin in the hope that someone somewhere will figure out what to do with it somewhere along the way. And this really impedes the recycling process. Recyclables can jam up the machines at the MRF, but they also contaminate all the other recyclable materials so that they can't be made into new products. And ultimately, that is truly the goal of recycling. I had to find a way to fund my project. And when I started investigating this, the traditional sources of funding were not available. The Recycling Partnership, which is a national organization, had decided to focus only on larger cities. And they hoped that by funding these programs in larger cities, that smaller cities would become aware of them and either fund their own programs or seek other sources of funding. Another source that had funded these programs in the past was the Ohio EPA. And when I contacted them, they were not funding anything like this because they had anticipated a pretty severe drop in their revenue based on the projections of what the state would be collecting in revenue, and this was all related to the pandemic. So I decided to contact the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District, and I had no idea that they had discussed this issue and an anti-contamination project for a couple of years, and they had been trying to figure out how to find a city that would be willing to take this on. When I contacted them, coincidentally, they had just met the week before in a planning meeting, and they had established this as a goal for 2021. So my timing could not have been more perfect. I applied for a special recycle cart tagging grant that they had established based on my conversations with them. And I was awarded a grant for $21,500. We are working with GT Environmental, which is a consulting organization. And this is to ensure that we're using scientific methods and that our numbers will be statistically correct. First comes a pre-audit, which will determine the existing level of contamination in our recycling stream, then an education campaign, and then an 8-week OOPS tagging of the recycling carts. We will have a post-audit to determine the improvement in our level of contamination, a final report, and then we'll submit everything for reimbursement under the grant. We conducted our pre-audit on April 27th, and our sample was a total of 7,900 pounds. And from that, we took samples and processed 1,200 pounds of recycling material. They estimated that it would take us about 8 hours. So we moved, weighed, and sorted all this material. And I can tell you, when in the morning, when we saw the 3 trucks dumping the recycling from the day before on the floor of our garage, which is one of the clips I showed you in the beginning, it was really kind of an overwhelming feeling. So we divided the recyclables into the categories: cartons, plastic, tin cans, glass, and then paper and cardboard. We also had categories for the contaminated material, and those were broken down to plastics that are not recyclable, other trash, and bagged materials. And our small group actually handled 2,400 pounds because we double handle it, and we finished an hour and a half ahead of schedule. We just kept moving very quickly the entire time. This is a panoramic photo of the recyclable materials that were dumped on the floor in our garage. And these were 2 pictures I'm sharing before we started taking samples from the pile. The one on the left, you can see obvious signs of contamination. What stands out the most is actually the bags that people have used that they've thrown in their recycling cart. On the right, you can see a needle, and we had other sections of the pile where there were numerous needles. But the reason I chose this particular photo is because if you look to the right of the needle, you can see a vial of blood. So there was a resident who actually placed a vial of blood in their recycling cart. These were the tables we used for our sorting. So the method is we either scooped up in bins or shoveled into bins random samples from the recycling pile. Those bins were weighed, and then we dumped them on these tables. Once we got a pretty good pile, we then started sorting the recyclables, and we sorted them out into the categories I previously mentioned. And then we sorted all the contaminants into the categories. And then when those bins were full, before we dumped those out to add more to those bins, we weighed them again. And this is how we double handled the material. The reason the materials were weighed twice is so that we would be able to reconcile the figures of the recyclable material and the contaminated material back to the total of the samples we took from the pile, and everything balanced. We did reconcile back to that figure. Here are 2 photos of bagged materials, and you can see the one photo on the left is all garbage. So this was garbage in a garbage bag that a resident put in their recycling cart. The photo on the right, you can see that it's mostly recyclables. However, none of this will be recycled for two reasons. First, it's in a bag. And second, you can see contaminants in there. I can see a package of cookies, and in the upper right, there is a cardboard carton, but it was from something that was in the freezer. And just in case people are not aware, because this is another myth, the cartons that contain items that go in your freezer are actually not recyclable. And it's because there's a coating on it to deal with moisture that could develop in the freezer, and then you'd have moisture in your frozen food. So these cartons or packaging are not recyclable. We did receive the pre-audit results, and of the 1,259 pounds that were sorted, 61.9% were recyclable and 38.1% were contamination or materials that are not accepted in our recycling program. And honestly, the service director and I were a little surprised that the figure was this high. We kind of thought that we would be under 30%. So the top contaminants in our collection, the first one was other trash. That was our largest source of contamination, and that included pizza boxes, the frozen food boxes, wax-coated paper, and then items made of multiple types of materials or non-recyclable items packed inside other items. And this was something new that I learned that day. It's called nesting, and I'm really not sure why residents do this, but they'll take an item that's recyclable, like commonly it's a like maybe a 12-pack cardboard carton from soda or beer, and then they'll start adding items to it, and basically they get nested. And invariably, it includes either at least one item or more that are not recyclable, which means none of it gets recycled. Our second category of contaminants was bagged items, and this was the garbage bags, plastic grocery bags, any bag of any type that had other materials placed inside. So the next steps to my project, right now we're working on a mailer to residents to explain the anti-contamination program. We're working on the OOPS tags. We are seeking to hire 4 seasonal part-time staff who will be the staff who will monitor the recycling carts. We're doing news releases, social media posts, and email blasts. Our program will begin on June 14th. We'll monitor the recycling for the 8 weeks. And then we'll have our post audit on August 10th, and hopefully we will see an improvement in the level of contamination. So finally, what to recycle? In Northeast Ohio, it's actually very limited right now. The plastic bottles and jugs, the cartons, including the cap, the glass bottles and jars, and the cans. I cannot stress this enough to please make sure that these are empty and rinsed. They don't have to be washed, but they should be rinsed pretty thoroughly. If any of these items contain anything more than just a small amount of what was in it originally, or if it's contaminated, like for example, a peanut butter jar, or another sticky substance is a jar with jelly in it, it literally makes it non-recyclable. So please make sure you're emptying them completely and rinsing them out. And then the other category is the paper and boxes. These also have to be dry, and you need to flatten the cardboard boxes. What not to recycle? Do not put your recyclables in a bag. No grocery bags. There are retail places that you can return these to. Non-recyclable paper products, and this includes tissues, napkins, paper towels, anything that has food on it, paper coffee cups, paper plates, grease-stained pizza boxes. In our city, we actually instruct residents not to recycle pizza boxes because in order for it to be recyclable, it literally cannot have one speck of food or grease on it. And that's pretty hard to do on a pizza box. No food or liquid. This goes back to emptying and rinsing all your containers. No garbage. And these items have actually been found in recycling: diapers, dead animals, yard waste cartons, household hazardous waste, and other types of materials that are not accepted in the program. Non-recyclable plastics. This is also a huge problem because, as I mentioned before, so many people think if they see that symbol on the bottom that it means it's recyclable. No large materials, which include construction debris, appliances, automotive parts, and no tanglers. Tanglers are things that get, just how it sounds, they get tangled up in the recycling, and this includes hoses, wires, chains, electronics, clothing, and textiles. And I would encourage people to visit the Solid Waste District's website. A number of years back, they developed this website, cuyahogarecycles.org, and it is very comprehensive. They address every type of recycling issue. They also have clips and brief webinars on very timely topics such as the wish cycling. And they also have a function where you can actually select the city where you live, and it will give you the clear instructions for what is recyclable and what is not. But it also provides you information on what to do with some of those other items that aren't ordinarily, or it's not ordinary recycling. This could be anything from the Christmas trees, election campaign signs, Christmas lights. So it's really a one-stop resource where you can get pretty much any question you have about recycling or trash answered. And I'm open for any questions that anyone may have.
Great job, Kathy. I loved it. I want to also give you props because I'm not sure if I made this clear enough, but Kathy's day job, she works at the library system, and she was very passionate about this project for her city that she lives and represents, and took the mantle, and it was a champion for this. And I know there's a ton of hours and a lot of negotiations and pushing this through. So I really appreciate the fact that you went above and beyond and were a champion for this issue and for the community that you represent. Also
Thanks.
really appreciate the fact that this is literally groundbreaking, or I guess ground filling. I'm not sure what the right word is, but the fact that I know that a lot of communities in our area are dealing with this challenge as we speak. It is a major issue, and the ability to put together this pilot project to see how it goes for your community, share that with across the community, and also to secure those funds to make it happen it's just been amazing. And I really want to say thank you on behalf of us, the residents, and hopefully humankind that will inhabit this planet for a few more years. So
so if I could just share briefly, I did start working on this. It's been almost a year now. It'll be a year in June, and I encountered so many obstacles to try and overcome along the way that, there's just not enough time to go into all of them. And when I first proposed this, most people actually thought that I would never be able to bring it to fruition just because there were so many moving parts and pieces, and, on top of the funding issues with the pandemic. And I am very grateful for the support of our service director, Mr. John Burba. He does a terrific job in our city, and also for the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District for being willing to take a chance on this in the hopes that it should be able to become a pilot or a demonstration project, and that other cities will be able to follow.
Excellent. Alexandra, I think we have a couple of comments and questions.
Yeah, so thanks to those who submitted some comments. So Charlene says, thank you, very informative. Thanks, Charlene. Brent says, so thorough with your background research, a very good project on a complex and timely topic. So it looks like he also has a question. Are there any studies from other communities that have implemented a similar program about people opting out of recycling instead of the risk of receiving an oops ticket and having to resort their recycling?
So yes, I can share a couple pieces of information. The first is not every city has mandatory recycling. In some cities, it is voluntary. In our city, it is mandatory. So ours is a little bit different. I can share with you what's going on in the city of Cleveland. And I think, as most people know, because of this contamination crisis, they were not able to secure an affordable contract, as I mentioned. So they well, for a while, they were landfilling their recycling, and they really didn't have a lot of advance notice on this. I think they thought they were such a large city that they would be able to secure a contract. So they have stopped recycling. However, they are working with actually the same environmental consultant that we're working with, GT Environmental. GT Environmental proposed, I think it was 7 options for them. And my understanding of what they're going to do moving forward for Cleveland, they are going to make recycling voluntary. So Cleveland is a city that deals with so many other type of issues, you know, as far as being a very urban and generally a poor city, that they could never have mandatory recycling and keep their levels of contamination down. So they are hoping that because people will have to sign up for this, that those residents will be interested enough to recycle correctly. And of course, they're going to also have an education campaign. I also spoke numerous times with the city of Akron, who did an anti-contamination program. And they had a couple interesting things. The first is, if there's a rental, when the tenant moves out, they collect the garbage and the recycling can, and that forces the renter to call the city and ask for it. And when they bring it out, they give them very specific instructions on the procedures for trash and recycling. They basically give people 3 chances. So if they continue to see contamination in recycling, and the person's been warned, they've been talked to, they had a visit from someone in the city, and they still will not comply for whatever reason, the city will take their recycling cart, and they just are not permitted to recycle. And you can see from the current stats I shared that disposing of trash is actually cheaper right now than disposing of the recyclables. However, at the end of the day, we're trying to keep all the recyclables out of landfills, because that's a whole nother issue. And I'm sure many people are aware that, you know, we have plastics in the ocean, you know, the microplastics are now in the food chain, both in the waters and on land. So the answer to the problem is really not to just collect it all and put it in a landfill, but that's how some cities have addressed it. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. So it looks like we just have a few more comments, so I'll go through these really quickly. And if anyone does have any last minute questions, feel free to add those. So Angelia says this was an extremely informative and positive presentation. My household's recycling habits will be forever changed. All of the data you compiled will set you up for a successful comparison further into the program. I'm really excited to see where this goes and how many other adjacent communities you will be able to support and guide. Great job, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Tim says, great project, Kathleen. This is so informative and all the information can be used in any city. I need to review my own recycling habits. Vashan says, I learned a lot. I didn't know about recycling. Oops. Elena says, your project definitely made me rethink my personal recycling habits and taught me a few new things to consider and remember when recycling. And then Christopher says, thank you for the recycling background and education. Very informative on contaminated items. I have been doing it wrong for so long. Thank you for making our life a little greener. And then finally, unless someone else has anything to add, Mayor Blackwell says, great presentation. Oh, Sarah Lynn, I have to say, as frustrated as it would be to get an oops ticket, I'd rather know what specific things I'm doing wrong than keep wish cycling. I think it's a great idea and hope your residents will too. And Jamie, I didn't realize that I was a wish cycler and that there was a term for that. Facepalm. All right, going once, going twice.
Well, great job, Kathleen. I didn't realize that recycling would get such a buzz, but that's fantastic. It's an important issue. So thank you again for everything you've done. And I hope that we continue to work and share this with the community because it's really important information. So thanks for being part of the program and coming back and finish up the PMA portion. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, and if I could just say briefly, I've really enjoyed this program. I did the Leadership Academy. Oh my goodness, I think it's probably about 5 years ago. And it was just really nice being able to get to know everybody in the group, even though we had to shift to the virtual platform. And we have just such a great group of dedicated public servants, and all of you have impressed me. So I really enjoyed being part of the group. Thank you all.
Ditto. Thanks, Kathy. Great job. We were supposed to have a break, but I want to stay on track as close as possible. So if you all need to take a break, feel free to do that, except for our next participants. We're going to rock and roll. What I want to say is we're shifting gears a little bit. The presentations we've seen so far have been our individual projects, and we're going to wrap up the day with two projects that we consider to be group or team projects. And I'm really excited to introduce to you today Daphne Evans from the village of Woodmere and Mr. Vashon Williams from the city of Euclid. Their project is also very timely in light of what's going on in the community. And I think they did a wonderful job putting together the project they're going to present here is called the Simulation Exercises in Empathy. And again, a quick shout out to Christopher Pfeiffer from RTA, who kind of assisted and acted in the consultant capacity with their project as well.
Stole my line, Rob.
I'm reading your script right now. You sent
Exactly.
me. Well, you can thank them too. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Daphne and Vashon.
All right, good morning. We're going to try and tag team. This is as Rob stated, this is the first group presentation that we'll have and project. So Daphne will be doing the screen sharing so we can have our presentation presented through Canva, which was a tool that we were introduced to during the PMA program. So as mentioned, our project is Simulation Exercises in Empathy, Project C. I partnered with Daphne Evans. She is the City of Woodmere Special Assistant to the Mayor, and I'm a sergeant in Euclid Police Department. We also worked in conjunction with the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, the Regional Transit Authority, and Euclid Public Library. And Chris Pfeiffer, he's a sergeant with Regional Transit Authority. He was very integral in giving his feedback and insight, which we greatly appreciate. And you'll see further along how he assisted and just how we ran into some complications just in the implementation process. So just starting out with our general pitch and summary of our program. Northeast Ohio serves as a hotspot for tensions that may arise between the community and police. And we all saw in 2020 how the nation faced a pandemic and several other incidents that kind of catalyzed the divisive tensions that boiled over in May 2020 with riots and protests that devastated the downtown Cleveland area. So with these riots spilling over into many of the suburbs, many police departments were prepared to react with like mobile field force teams and different things of that nature. However, we failed in being proactive in trying to figure out what we needed to figure out how to empathize with one another by sharing simulations of poverty and both police interactions with community members, law enforcement, and stakeholders to just basically shed a light on the lives of those disadvantaged backgrounds and law enforcement professionals. This appreciation for one another's conditions and experiences, we may not be able to directly experience that in our daily interactions. So it would be good to introduce simulations in order to do that. So the goal is to reduce citizen complaints by about 25%. We plan in our proposed implementation plan to introduce these programs maybe every 6 months with the poverty simulations. And it'll also encourage officers to police with compassion. And it invites citizens to take an active role in understanding and solving crime in our communities in conjunction with police, if we're able to get both the poverty and police simulation underway. So getting into what is a poverty simulation, it basically is a role-playing exercise. The in-person version of it is what is more preferred, but with COVID being in place, it wasn't able to occur. However, the in-person version is there's an hour, you're in a large facility like a gymnasium, you're given a list of props and you're given a list of activities that you have to complete within an hour's time frame. So every 15 minutes, the whistle blows, you're able to go throughout the day, you're taking on the role of like a member in a family of 2 adults, maybe 2 kids, and you have to drop off your kids at daycare, go to the grocery store, go to social service agencies. Maybe you might get stopped by the police and have to answer some questions. So it just puts a little bit of stress on your life in that 15-minute time frame where you're trying to get on the bus and make it to work on time. And it just shows the complications that those in poverty might be faced with. We can go to the next slide. So for the poverty simulation, for all of our simulations, actually, we use the logic models. This was a tool that I've used in the past, and I really like it because it just that's how my mind works, and it breaks the steps down of what's needed to complete an activity and then reach an overall goal. So for the poverty simulation, we did discuss these logic models in the PMA program as well. We would need several inputs, which would go from like personnel to monies to actually put on the program and marketing, different things like that. Eventbrite, we would utilize that in order to market and also reserve seating and spots within the training so people can sign up for dates. We would use different scripts that would be utilized for the different role-playing exercises, and maybe even computer activities in Zoom might be an option. So as far as the activities, it would just go into the simulations, which go over different aspects of what would occur throughout the daily lives of individuals involved in those 15-minute segments. Budgeting, banking, marketing, those are things that we dealt with primarily within the virtual portion of the simulation as well. And then getting into the pre and post test, which I felt like was an integral piece that we wanted to implement. And also when we worked with the food bank, they loved that idea of trying to measure people's knowledge, attitudes, behaviors, or towards those that are in poverty. So we'll get more into the survey as we go along. And then just going into the outcomes of what we would expect, we would learn, or the participants would learn, how to change their perspectives on those that are in poverty, learn more information about insecurities, food scarcity, may be interested in volunteering to assist those in poverty, and just coming from a place of empathy. Thus our project, Simulation Exercises in Empathy. So when we discuss the shoot, don't shoot logic model, this is the police simulation. We worked with the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority with Sergeant Chris Pfeiffer. And in working with them, we knew that we would need like police to run the simulation. Those that are certified firearms instructors, those individuals actually run the simulations. We would need a location that would be more or less a dark room in order to put that programmed together because the simulation machine, which you'll see later, is it needs a screen that will project an image almost like a movie, as if you were in a drive-in onto a screen. And in the projecting of it, then you have an operator who manages the computer. And when they're managing the computer, they're taking you through different scenarios, which are your activities. So we were planning to do 2 to 3 scenarios that would go from like domestic violence situations where you walk up on a call as a police officer and you have a partner. 2 individuals would be assigned to this specific scenario. Both would have like simulated firearms, which aren't real active firearms, but they shoot out more or less like a laser to indicate if you shot someone or used your taser, and you would be equipped with that different type of equipment and tools. So as we would get into it, we would do a pre-test, and our pre-test would try and determine some of the feelings that individuals have towards policing and situations that they may be faced in. What, like, do they feel safe in their community? Do they feel safe when they see the police? How do they feel regarding police interactions with the community and things of that nature? And so in the end, we hope to have individuals from the community and citizens gain a new respect for the police and educate the public on why we make split-second decisions in our everyday interactions. You can go to the next slide. So this is the laser shot system. It is owned by the Regional Transit Authority. We had the privilege of meeting with Sergeant Pfeiffer and one of his firearms instructors. That's me over there on the left side, getting some information based on the demos that we went through. If you can see on the desk, he has the little laptop that controls that monitor and everything right in the middle and projector. And he just would run us through, he ran us through several drills and scenarios, and they were like almost, it was very like real, very, very real. They have different things set up almost like you're at a range, and they have target practice where you can do targets practice on maybe like cutout that you would normally see on TV or anything like that. And then they have the simulations where you can go through that. So on the right-hand side, there is a simulated taser and Glock firearm. And then we utilize those tools when we were going through the different scenarios. Daphne did a good job actually on the scenarios, I would say, and being my partner and assisting. Yeah, I think she can give some insight if you have anything like from when you participated in that, just briefly, Daphne, how you felt.
I'm sorry. So for me, it was eye-opening because I had never really, even though I have my license, I had never really handled a gun. I never had to make a split decision. So it just opened my eyes to what Bashan and every other police officer goes through on a day-to-day basis. And I just would not want to have that responsibility ever. That's a huge burden on you all.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, some of the scenarios, I mean, we would walk into basically someone in a garage, he was upset. For example, the guy was upset and he's like holding a crowbar, and he would decide that he was gonna start to walk towards us, and like the only option we had really was to shoot him, or we had an option to try and de-escalate the situation and try and like talk to him and walk through it like, hey, drop the weapon, drop the crowbar, and tell me what's going on. And if we hit on those key prompts, then the guy, the firearms instructor who was manning the computer, he would adjust how we would transition through that exercise. Sometimes the only option was to shoot someone because they would not back down or they were coming at us too quick. But other times we were able to de-escalate some situations, or maybe we had to even use a taser as an option. So that was some of the things that we experienced.
One other thing, Bashan.
Go ahead.
One other thing that I noticed during the training, when we talked about why you shot, why would you shoot or not shoot? I would ask Bashan, well, why did you shoot him? And Bashan would say, he had a gun. And I would never even see the gun. So that takes some intense training.
Yeah. I mean, there was one where there was a knife, for example, and I mean, someone was getting robbed with a knife, and I couldn't really even see it. Maybe it was just because it was the screen or something like that. I think maybe if it was real life and in person, I might have seen it better in a 3D situation. But the guy had actually stabbed and injured the person who he was robbing. And after he started to aggress me, then I'm like, okay, he's coming at me. So I ended up shooting him. And then the female who he was with, who had gotten stabbed, she just kind of screamed and ran away from what I remember. So
Right.
it's very intense, very real life situations, and very real. So, however, the unfortunate part is we wanted to do the poverty simulation and the police simulation in conjunction to kind of get that 360 aspect of bringing both, like, the community to see what police do and police to see how individuals that we may service in lower income neighborhoods might feel about their situations, and just get that empathy going. Unfortunately, since we were going to be using the RTA's equipment and their personnel, there was some issues and red tape that we had to make it through that we didn't necessarily make it through in enough time. No fault of anyone necessarily at RTA or with Daphne or I, but we weren't able to do that. We're hoping to meet in the future and go forward with implementing something with RTA on possibly a 6-month biannual basis, but we'll see how that goes. However, in the end, we implemented a virtual poverty simulation due to COVID. So as far as the virtual simulation, this was the first time that the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, who we partner with, was developing this. The food bank actually does the in-person simulation as well, but they were working on creating this virtual model. And we were able to have input basically in how they developed it and implemented it, some of the different slides that they went through and discussions that we had. And it was actually a very unique and interesting process to be involved in something like that. It's new based on not being able to be in person. So some of the inputs, we had Woodmere Police involved in it, Euclid police officers involved in the process. The library was very helpful in marketing. Euclid Library, I've worked with them in the past on several community events, and they have always assisted really well with marketing and helping me put on programs. We delivered it through PowerPoint, and we utilized surveys. The survey was taken from, there's a lady from Ole Miss or University of Mississippi. She was attending there, working on her thesis, and she was a student in the McLean Institute for Public Service and Community Engagement. She had developed a survey already for an in-person poverty simulation. I requested permission if she minded if I used her survey, and she gave permission and allowed us to use her 23-question survey. So it was great. Saved some time on us reinventing the wheel. Daphne was very integral in also creating like the Eventbrite, and we wanted to implement the program 5 days from April 12th through April 16th. And so she created Eventbrite, and we had Zoom links for those specific days. So when delivering the output, we had discussion that was led by Terry Rounds from the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, who led us through the actual PowerPoint and talked a lot about those in poverty from his perspective of being a teacher. He worked in an impoverished or low-income community as a teacher, and then now he just volunteers his time with the food bank, but he developed that whole program for the Making Choices virtual poverty simulation. And then the outcomes that we hope to try and achieve would be that the participants will change their perspective regarding those in poverty. They'll also be encouraged to volunteer their time and donate money and time to organizations that are in the community that work with those that are from low-income backgrounds. And then just creating that understanding and empathy, just the sensitivity and sensitizing individuals like police officers who may come from communities that may be outside of like Cleveland and working in inner city areas where they may not understand why, for example, someone chooses to have a 1-bedroom apartment, but they have maybe like a bed in the living room and also 2 beds in the bedroom, they may not understand why that is set up like that. But then seeing how individuals have to budget their money is what the Making Choices poverty simulation was about. Taking on a $12 an hour type of income for a family of adults with 2 in the household. 1 stays at home. There are 2 kids. Do you choose to have a vehicle, or do you choose to have a 1-bedroom apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment? And you have to make those tough choices to meet your budget. But because you maybe make $12 an hour, you're over the poverty guidelines, and you don't really qualify for some of the aid that might be provided to those that are under the poverty guideline. Go to the next slide. So
So
Daphne, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so to prepare for this project, a little bit of it Vashawn already touched on, but we held meetings with Euclid Public Library, RTA, and the Cleveland Food Bank. And in meeting with the Cleveland Food Bank, they already had a simulation prepared and in use, but after working with Vashawn and I, they noticed that their presentation was just a little outdated. So Terry used input from our classes to update his presentation for future simulations. We met with the RTA, which Vashawn already touched on as well, but we met with them, and we had specifically had interest in the shoot, don't shoot scenarios. And these scenarios, they were designed to teach critical concepts such as officer presence, communication skills, verbal and nonverbal cues, as well as de-escalation, which it taught me a lot, as you know, going through the scenarios. So we went through and we chose 2 to 3 that we would use for our program. And we actually participated and had discussions at the end to justify our decisions. So to the people that we invited were people from the various police departments. They advertised in the newsletter, the Euclid newsletter. Woodmere put it on their website. We did it over Eventbrite, and I reached out to a couple schools. It was hard to get to the schools because during the pandemic, there wasn't a lot of staff there. I used Eventbrite to communicate to everybody. 24 hours prior to the class, I sent a Zoom link as well as the class documents that we were going to use for discussion. All of our classes were 90 minutes in length, and we had a total of 52 people enrolled in the poverty simulation. Even though we had 52 people enrolled, they didn't all show up for the classes. So on Monday, we had 7. On Tuesday, we had 17, and on Friday, we had 14. Some days we were able to do breakout sessions when we had more attendees, and some days we wasn't. So on Monday, when we had low participation, we just did one large group discussion.
I would just add, we went from doing 5 days of the actual programming to just down to the 3 days, since we had low enrollment on the Wednesday and Thursday. So we adjusted, cut out the Wednesday and Thursday, asked individuals, there was maybe one person on Thursday, asked them to join on like the Monday group.
So this is just a screenshot from the first day that we held class. And this is Terry up in the corner showing his presentation. And this, like Vashawn said, we wanted to do it in person, but because of COVID, we had to do everything online. And by it being online, I think people still got the message that we were trying to send through this program. And this is just the worksheet that they use to keep a tally of their expenses. Then after they went through, we kind of compared from one group to another. And it just lets you see how much money you have, how much money you spent, and if you don't have enough money, what you can do without. So it just makes you think, like, I don't have enough money to do things, so what can I live without? What can my kids go without? So it's just tough decisions. Sean.
All right, so from the pre and post test, there were 23 questions, as I mentioned, that were taken from that survey. I'll just go over a quick brief couple of them since I think we're running up on our time. Some of the questions were, are poor people are dishonest? That was one. And the majority of respondents said they strongly disagree. Next one was, the poor are treated the same way as everyone else. Majority of respondents were neutral, but responses lean toward the disagree and strongly disagree. There is a lot of fraud among welfare recipients. Respondents were evenly split between neutral and agree. People get enough money to survive from welfare, food stamps, and other social programs. The respondents were majority neutral, and by the post test, 2 changed their responses to disagree, while 1 strongly disagreed. And then the last one I'll read is, the financial pressures faced by the people with low income are no different than the financial pressures faced by other Americans. The majority of respondents were neutral, but 2 changed their post-test responses to disagreement on the Likert scale, while only 1 strongly disagreed. So unfortunately, out of the 38 people that actually attended, we only got 6 respondents to actually return the surveys. That's kind of typical. People don't like to fill out surveys. And even more so, of the 6 respondents, only 3 did the pre-test and post-test, while the 3 others did just the post-test. So this is just a certificate of a completion that the participants were given after they did the simulation and went through it. So for the future, did you want to talk about it, Daphne, or you want me to cover it?
No, you could talk about, this is your slide.
Oh, okay. So for the future roadmap, we want to continue to offer the simulation in person. We definitely want to do the in person, because I feel like even though the virtual format was very helpful, the stress of the in-person simulation of trying to make it within those 15 minutes, and the whistle is about to blow and you have to be like at work by a certain time and you get held up, that's the stress of it that you need to experience. And then we want to set up a future planning meeting with the RTA in order to discuss a joint program for the police and poverty simulations, work with Euclid schools and Euclid police to offer the program, and maybe utilize the Euclid schools simulation equipment, since they actually have the same laser shot system, if we're not able to partner with RTA. And then possibly offer the program biannually as a future implementation goal. So that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, we would be happy to answer.
Well, I just want to say thank you to you both and to Chris again for knocking us out of the park. I wanted to say, make a comment about the RTA and their participation in that simulation. I've been contacted by their administration, and they are very interested in partnering with you both on this as they move forward. The comment I got was, as a matter of some of that quote red tape and some of the priorities that they're working on, but this is something that they are definitely interested in pursuing. I fully expect them to partner with you moving forward. And I want to thank you both for addressing a significant issue in our community, in our country. This is not an easy thing to talk about. And I guess when we're working with our friends from across the country, especially the East Coast, they kind of use this concept about a wicked problem. And both poverty and the shooting things are wicked problems. It's very complicated, and putting a spotlight on this and helping us understand what it entails, and hopefully also the empathy part as far as dealing with our neighbors and our residents in the area will give us a little bit better idea of pausing and maybe stepping up and volunteering and helping out. So this project, I think, is opened a lot of people's eyes and will have a ripple effect in a positive ways for years to come. And just want to say thank you for both of you stepping up to take the lead on that. So great job. Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Alexander, do we have any questions?
Okay, so it looks like someone says low response rates on surveys are frustrating. Have you considered having them do pre and post test as part of the actual workshop? Maybe using a mobile polling system, text to respond? If participants have mobile phones, I found it sometimes having them do it while they're sitting in front of you virtually or in person, it gets better response rates.
I think that's a good idea, definitely. This was the first time implementing the program, so we didn't know how long it was going to last. Some groups were about an hour, then others through the discussion, if you had more people, it was about an hour and a half. We just didn't necessarily know if we should take up more people's time doing the program, doing the surveys at the beginning and the end, but that is a good idea, I would agree. And I think that's something we should utilize possibly going forward. So thank you for that.
Okay, it looks like we have a few more comments and some questions. So Mayor Blackwell says courageous and very important project. Elena says good presentation and an important issue. People often forget the importance of empathizing. And then Charlene Jones says, outstanding. Can you copyright this and send it throughout the state of Ohio and the United States?
That would be great. That would be awesome if we could do all of that. I mean, I would love for it to get some sort of national attention. And it sounds like that might be something when we partner with RTA, it might happen since they're working on a police simulation specifically right now. So it might go there. Thank you.
Well, if there's any other questions, feel free to drop them in comments in the Q&A section. If not, please make sure you complete the peer evaluation and forward that commentary to Daphne and LaShawn as well. I just want to say thanks again. And also a shout out. The one big thing about PMA, in my opinion, is the opportunity to collaborate. I love the fact that the police departments, I love the fact that the library, I love the fact that the food bank, all those folks in there were involved. So fantastic, fantastic. Not only hitting the management aspect of things, but the leadership and the collaboration and bringing folks together. So I just want to give you a kudos for doing that and thank them for their participation. Alexander, I think we have another question.
Yeah, so I guess kind of similar to Charlene's comment and question. Hi, very informative and awesome. Can you give this to the governor of Ohio?
Definitely think we'll see what we can do. We'll work on that. Thank you.
Yep, and I'll just say that I have no influence. Governor DeWine doesn't know who I am or if I even exist, but I will work through our advisory board. We have several folks that are connected throughout the state and make sure that A, they're aware of this, and to have a discussion about if there's a way that we can spread this out throughout the system to get other folks involved. So thank you very much for this opportunity. All right,
I
folks.
just want to thank Vashawn for
sorry,
letting me
Daphne.
partner with him because my project got scrapped. So thank you, Vashawn.
No, you're welcome. It was a pleasure working with you definitely on this. So we got many more to come.
Thank you.
Very dynamic duo. I appreciate that partnership. You all did a great job. Any other further questions or concerns, feel free to put them in the chat or follow up with those two participants. And then want to say that we're going to wrap up the day with our very last presentation. This is also a team project. This team has three participants from our cohort. And the name of the project is the Newly Elected Officials Reference Guide. And I would like to invite Steve Kylo, Mayor Blackwell, and Ghazala Ahmed to the stage. And I believe, Steve, you're kicking us off. Is that correct? Steve, we can't hear you or you're on mute. But I will say, as we get started, that Steve is represents the city of Strongsville, Ohio. And Steve is the current HR director for the city of Strongsville, Ohio. Steve, are you there? You're on mute right now, Steve.
Okay, until Steve, can we hear you? Can we hear Steve yet?
I cannot. I'm sorry, Steve.
Okay, I will jump in and just have Steve just talk over me when you get in.
Thanks, Mayor.
Very excited. You know, we're a team. This is what groups do, right? Someone else straps the oars to the rowboat. This is an excellent program. We're so excited to have been members of PMA, and like our previous presenters, we met some amazing people, some people who are really very knowledgeable that I'm sure our paths will cross again. And I think we can learn from everyone. This written report, which is a part of the parts of the presentation. So I've got 3 parts we'll present today. Steve Kylo has done the written report, done a fantastic job, explains and introduces some of the concepts we've learned in all the presentations done by the presenters. If I go to his table of contents specifically in his written report, Steve has written in section 1 an executive summary. There's a project description followed by extended purpose and goal. There's an action plan in our execution. He discusses information gathering and his analysis. There's project measurable results. There's an agency organization work group benefit. And then in section 8, as we wrap up, it says, how do you apply what you learn? How did it benefit you personally? He goes into a great written response to that. And section 9 ends of this written report, workshop knowledge, theories through principles, models and techniques. What I will say as I turn it over to Ghazala, who did the PowerPoint of this, there's 3 parts to our presentation. There's the written report, which I just went over, with the table of contents, starting again with the executive summary and ending with the workshop knowledge and all the theories and presentations that we apply to our project. And then the second part is we did a SWOT analysis PowerPoint presentation, which was presented by Ghazala Ahmed, who is our academia on this project. I will conclude with just a table of contents and just a brief overview of the resource guide that we have presented, and that's what's up right now. And then I just want to say before Ghazala starts, you know, as we went through all of the presentations by the very knowledgeable, very renowned, informative, professional presenters and educators, public finance being a big part of what's left on the plate and the responsibility of the various branches of government, executive, and even legislative as they're making appropriations, and that's our city councils. Grants management, collective bargaining, those presentations were significant. And that as we went through them, it just confirmed over and over again that this group had chosen a great product to summarize all that information in a very helpful and organized fashion. And so that led to the creation of this manual, which ended up being just really kind of our best efforts. When you look at Steve Kylo's background, I didn't know until he did the written guide. He's actually an attorney, and he is a human resource director for many, many years in the area at Strongsville, which is a very big and successful city. And then I think, you know, and then you've got me, the mayor of Maple Heights, which is not as successful as a city, but a city that has a lot of promise. But when you get down to what our responsibilities are, it really doesn't matter what zip code you sit in, and we try to really illustrate that in our project. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ghazala Ahmed, who did our PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Ghazala, are you ready to present? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll just zip it. I'd like to just introduce Ghazala Ahmad, and she is a PhD from Levin College. So we're so excited to have you part of this cohort, Ghazala. So rock and roll.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so long since this morning, so beautiful, a very good presentations and everything. My mind is just so happy with all that. So anyway, and Mayor Blackwell have done quite good summary what our project is based on it. So I would just go slide by slide, and I think Alexandra will just keep shifting my slides, right? It's only a couple of slides. We will go fast quickly. Or I can just do it probably. Yeah. So the goal of this project as a part of the curriculum of Public Management Academy Cohort 5 is to provide the best practice guide to the newly elected officials. So the project pitch is no education or training needed for multi-million organizations. That explains a lot here, because being an elected public officer, or you have to have a successful campaign and you become a public officer, but there is not really a certain requirement of higher education or any certifications, or the requirement is you should have no felony, and your age should be certain age. So that makes it, sometimes there is not job training is available. And so this project, and then they start working right away. So this project is going to help them to initiate and understand and then start working on their assigned jobs. I think Mayor Blackwell would really explain later on more into that. And we can go to the next slide. So the goal of this project is to provide an orientation, best practice, and reference information for newly elected officials. We would go to the next slide. In private or non-public sectors, job trainings are available. Sometimes internships are available. But in public sector, most of the time individual win or appointed in different departments to start working immediately. And the stress of work and governance, like, they're following the Ohio Revised Code and all the guidelines, they start working it. So it's kind of like a transition becomes really hard. So this project, our project, this manual would really help a lot. So can we go to the next one? Next slide. So additionally, like I said, there is a clear separation of power in local, state, and federal government, which is significant in creating, executing, and enforcing policies and procedures. So we believe that this project will be very helpful for all newly elected officials. Next slide. Okay, the mission. I think, can you go one slide back? Yeah. So if someone is entering the public sector first time, I think I missed up the slides. Yeah. Okay, go ahead for the next one. Yeah, we did this. So for mission statement for this, we have done this. This presentation is according what we learned from PMA, from Dr. Maiden, and this is just flowing, like opening up the educational sessions. We learned it from Dr. Maiden about project management and strategic management and public, all those things which we learned, but we have used some certain tools which we learned from her. So I have used it, we used it as SWOT analysis. So we would be coming up that. So the mission of this project is to provide helpful reference information for newly elected officials, providing an orientation, best practices to aid the officials in a successful transition, promoting confidence, professionalism among officers in responsible manner. Next slide. So we used SWOT analysis, like what are the weaknesses, strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. So for this project, this manual contains a table of contents which organize documents to clearly explain or provide additional information for the duties and responsibility of their new roles. Those are the strengths of this project. Next slide. And weaknesses we could count on, it's like traditions of elected officials from non-public to public service sector, or the culture of public sector is completely different and it has a limitation in governance. And newly elected officials comes from all backgrounds. So these could be counted as kind of weaknesses which can be overcome by this project, which would be helpful, this guide. Next. So the opportunity this manual would provide us to the officials and public officials at the Ohio local government, information about Ohio local governments, branches of governments, city administrators and departments, municipal boards and commissions, municipal finance, regional leadership and ethics. All this information is going to be provided in this manual. Next. So there are some threats which, or you can call it, it's kind of limiting this, is understanding legal issues right away, and or a fear of a change, staying consistent with the separation of power. Sometimes that's also is kind of a hindersome. So, but with this information, which is going to this manual is going to provide, is going to be helping a lot. Next. So the team members of this project hopes this manual will educate the newly elected officials and make them more efficient and productive. I just have been through fast, so then Blackwell or Steve can talk more about it.
Can you hear me now? Hopefully, I think Rob says people can hear me now. Our IT director was able to get us in there. So thanks for putting up with the technical difficulties. All that aside, though, I just wanted to really get into the fact of why we embarked on this project and what a pleasure it has been to work with both Gazella and Mayor Blackwell, and for us to be able to really, go into an area that I think we find, all of us find a great deal of passion for in public service overall, and really the challenges that are presented in working in the public sector today. And I just had the opportunity yesterday, in fact, I was at my Mayor Persiak's annual State of the City address, and he opened up right out of the gate in this and saying, if you think you're performing and doing public service or working in government the same as you did even 18 months ago because of the pandemic, everything has changed. And for us, in putting our project team together, and what our goal was to really have a resource, a tool, something that is on the desktop of anybody that may be entering public life for the first time, either as an appointed official, maybe heading up a department, or somebody that is newly elected. And really the newly elected person, I think, coming into this arena and knowing what it takes to really make an impact, and most people, when they enter this arena, they're thinking to themselves, okay, I'm coming into public service and I want to make a difference. People truly do want to make a difference, but a lot of times they don't have the resources or the tools to really enter that arena with knowing what you need to know and where you need to go to get information and to serve your constituents. And for us, it boiled down to really a task, because you don't want something that is overly burdensome or would be something that would be overwhelming to somebody. So when we developed our table of contents that Mayor Blackwell will go through with you when it comes to her portion of the presentation, it was really tough to really nail down what it is or what areas to really concentrate on that can provide a one-stop shop for somebody to really to be able to find answers or go to a source that they can get proper information or answers for. Another big component of what we did when we put this together was we wanted a best practices that could be applied regardless of the demographic or the community or where you're from, whether you're on the east side, whether you're on the west side, whether you're a township, whether you're a village, whether you're a city that has a strong mayor form of government or a strong council form of government. These principles and practices and things that we are envisioning for this document are something that could be applied across all different areas, and no matter the demographic of your community, whether you're Maple Heights, whether you're Strongsville, it should be information that can be useful to everybody. We always said at the outset of our project, that I think we said in some of our sessions, that you could enter public life and go in and win an election, but you don't need any specific training. You don't need any specific education or certifications. You basically win an election and you could be in public office barring any type of felony conviction or something like that, where, again, you're coming in and people realize that you're dealing with multi-million-dollar businesses, as these cities and townships and villages are, and being able to navigate through the red tape that comes along with in government, it can be overwhelming. And for us, this is a great opportunity to reach out to the CSU community, and led by Rob here, that we can take this document to his leadership and to his group, and then also as the Mayor Blackwell serves on the Cuyahoga County Mayors and Managers Association, that we can take this document to those specific audiences and put it to their boards and whatnot for review, and how we can keep this a living, breathing, fluid document that as things change and as things go on, we can revise and we can change and we can do things and keep this a very fluid document for people to be able to reference. When I was doing the written report and I was going through the different chapters and different table of contents that were required, and it really does, like, when you sit back and you reflect on the number of changes that have occurred just in recent years, and I'll just give one that we have encountered, that both of our communities really demonstrate the differences in how you attack a particular area. Is around 7 years ago, the state of Ohio put out an edict, basically, that they thought there existed in the state far too many PSAPs, or what you want to call emergency dispatch centers, throughout the region, throughout the state. And they put something out there that really called for, what they wanted was a regionalized collaboration to greatly reduce the number of dispatch centers. Well, as oftentimes happens, they go on and embark on these type of ventures without really understanding the full impact of what they were trying to accomplish, both from a manpower and skills for actually qualified dispatchers, but also with technology. And this soon became a very big issue, and the idea at the outset was for counties to really, the large counties to really take this on, where they would be the driving force, where these regionalized collaborated dispatch centers would take place. Well, we soon found out after they did this that it really became a huge budgetary issue, and most counties were unable to really take hold and take the lead on putting these regionalized dispatch centers together. Well, that spawned some other creative ways to get at the end that the state wanted in having less dispatch centers and having more regionalized efforts, it led to formation of different, what I would call hybrid situations. And the city of Strongsville, specifically for us, and I've been a part of this since its inception, we created the Southwest Emergency Dispatch Center, where the city of Strongsville took the lead what we did is we contracted out with other cities that they pay us to provide their dispatch services. But those individuals that are dispatchers are city of Strongsville employees. And we now currently dispatch for 6 cities that border us, that are around us here on the southwest end of the county, and soon to add a 7th community in Middleburg Heights, hopefully very shortly. Well, then on the other end of the spectrum, for Mayor Blackwell, she realized the need for having regionalized dispatch for her community and what that took, and she was able to partner with her community with the Cuyahoga Valley Dispatch Center, which is they take on far many more communities than the city of Strongsville does, but the way that they do business as a private group that came aboard and really contracted with these communities to do and provide services is a vastly different approach than us, but we're still getting to the same ends in regionalizing and collaborating based on what the state's edict was. So that's just one example. But as we move along, as we go forward, there's going to be many more changes as the result of the pandemic and result of changing of how we do business. And we need to make sure that we are in front of that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mayor Blackwell.
Thank you. I think you guys can see Gonzala's presentation during the SWOT analysis was definitely taken from one of our PMA presentations. Steve's detailed report, the table of contents for the written report. And then I am going to just the guide, what we've been talking about, how do we get here? Just to give some background, Maple Heights is a $33 million budget. We can imagine what Strongsville is. So you've got someone who may have a high school education, which is, there's nothing wrong with a high school education, but no certification really in accounting or budgeting or management. There's over 100 employees to manage, and all of that hits you day one when you win, after you take your oath of office. How do you navigate through that? So I just want to briefly, because I want to be cognizant of the time, you've sat through many presentations, so I want to be brief. If we could just go to the table of contents. This is what we arrived with what you saw Gonzalo put together as we figured out what we would do through the SWOT analysis, and then complementing Steve's written report, we were able to nail down the table of contents. And so section 1 is all about the types of city government: strong mayor, city manager, which is then determine how you operate by city charter. And these are source documents that are in this manual under these sections. Section 2, you heard Gonzalo talk about branches of local government and separation of power. So there's executive office, the mayor's office. Legislative, of course, is city council. And the section 3, then what makes up an administration? Well, there's a legal department, a law director. There may be a magistrate that oversees the mayor's court if that is, if the city has a mayor's court. There's the finance department headed by the finance director, human resources, which Steve Kylo does in the city of Strongsville. There's a city council office, the clerk that puts together public notices and all of the packet and information, of course, for the council meetings. Public safety of fire and police chiefs. And there's actual job descriptions we've put into this manual. So you can see, what do those individuals do? What are their duties and responsibilities? What qualifications might he or she have? The building department, how are inspections done? How are, how is abatements, nuisance abatements, the service director, what he does, and how the city engineer, the infrastructure, and then the economic development director, how do they bring new business to the city? All of that's in the manual, actual scenarios. And the human services department, which may or may not include our senior center. This is where your social services for your city is obtained. People may have a water shut off here in Maple Heights. Our senior center helps with utility cutoffs. They organize the COVID-19 vaccinations down at the Wolstein Center, as well as the new Metro Health Center at Southgate. And then section 4 is about the boards and commissions. What do cities have? There's a planning and zoning board. And a subset of the planning and zoning board is the architectural review board. When there's new construction, we're having a new car wash, a new Dollar General, there's some new housing. Those developments have to go through. Is it in the right? Is it lining up with the planning and zoning board, which should match maybe your master plan? A civil service commission, public safety officers go through the civil service commission. And Steve really was very helpful because this is what he does in his position at Strong's. He brought a great deal of support and firsthand knowledge. The Civil Service Commission. I, as the mayor, I appoint the Civil Service Commissioners, which are citizens here in Maple Heights. Charter Review Commission. We're going through that now every 5 years because we are a city governed by a charter. We have the Charter Review Commission. And then the next page as I wrap up. And then section 5 is all about municipal finance. We had a great doctor, I think her name was Dr. Gutman, I believe, from Cleveland State, talked about municipal finance. So there's monthly financial reports, the budgets, the income tax agency distribution and collections. Where is our revenue coming from? We have an example of an annual audit. We are subject to an audit, a management letter at the end of that audit we may get from that auditor. And then there's an audit committee that works with maybe a subcommittee of the council, which is the finance committee. There's an audit committee. Grants, there was a great deal of work, I believe it was Dr. Mather did on grants management. We tried to include how those grants management add to our finances. That's revenue that we can use. Collective bargaining, a whole section done on that by some really great presenters. Economic development, it is crucial. It is crucial to municipal finance to get, to go and find businesses that will increase our income tax collections and of course maybe even add to those employees choosing Maple Heights as a place to live. Municipal abatements and incentives. What incentives do we offer here for some new home construction, a community reinvestment act where CRA, where for new construction, the improvement part of the property value is abated for 15 years to spur new housing and attract people to our city. Section 6 is all about regional leadership. I prepared just a paragraph on describing what they are. Who's the Regional Transit Authority? What is the Northeast Regional Sewer District? What is Northeast Area Coordinating Agency, NOACA? The Ohio Municipal League, the Northeast Ohio Mayor and City Managers Association. And under that is the Cuyahoga Mayors and City Managers Association, which Steve Kylo's Mayor Persek is president of, and I am a member of. The Northeast Ohio First Service Consortium, a group that comes together to address the inner ring suburbs issues. Team Neal, big part of what we saw in the draft and how they attack regional talent and help promote Northeast Ohio. And then big part, all of the elected officials right now, May 16th, I believe is the deadline to fill out your annual financial disclosure statement. We have to fill that out. If we're getting gifts over 100, what are our assets? Are we on board to have membership or stock in something where there may be an independence issue? And last, really big for elected officials, the open meetings law, the sunshine law, meetings being public, records being available to the public, and then city council executive session meetings where we're talking about personnel matters that are not privy to the public. So we try to be really comprehensive. And again, the guiding principle was Gonzalez's PowerPoint, the fact that she chose the SWOT analysis to show the strengths and weaknesses. We want to show you where those strengths are. Municipal finance is going to be one, understanding the regional leadership to leverage those relationships. And then me matching that to Steve's written report. So there is some consistency and continuity in our presentation. The manual is done, too big to lift here, to load here, too long, but everything matches up for every item in the section. There is a source document so that the person can actually take a look at a visual and see what for instance, the Ohio ethics law. I actually downloaded the financial disclosure statement. So when they see it, they can go and actually view what it is. We'll tab it. I guess we do it in a zip drive and we'll get it to Rob and Alexandra. We had a ball. It was fantastic. It was challenging Not everyone saw the vision, but from day one, we were clear on the vision. We were clear on the vision. And Ghazala was just a perfect complement to our team. And we really just split up our weaknesses with her academia and the SWOT analysis and Steve's long history, his law background, me really actually having these challenges the day that I walked in, coming from a private background. Who is the RTA? What board should I be on? And what are the monthly financial reports to help me understand exactly where we are from a fiscal position, and what do I need to do to be compliant and stay out of the paper and following the laws so that my transparency is there and there's credibility and people believe in just the honesty of their elected officials. We're public persons, whether you're a public employee or whether you're an elected official. So with that, I conclude my report, and I want to just thank you for this opportunity. It was long, it was difficult doing it virtual, but we got it done, and we're very, very proud of what we were able to present here today. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say that I'm pumped. You all, like, I'm not exactly sure how to say this. Like, this was a huge project. When Mayor Blackwell brought the concept up, I was like, okay, but I said, this is something that we can probably do in phases. We can do it over time. And it was like, nope, if we're going to go for it, we're going big time. And I really think that you all went above and beyond the expectation as far as what a deliverable could be. And I think it's a testament to your professionalism, your expertise, and passion for this concept. Mayor Blackwell, I've been just in awe of your ability to come in as a newly elected official, kind of take the city of Maple Heights to a whole new level. Someone that maybe not necessarily was involved in the public sector before, and then using your expertise and leadership skills to get Maple Heights in a situation to be out of fiscal emergency and to thrive is a testament to just kind of your dedication to this. So after seeing you in action that way, and then having the expertise of Steve and Ghazala kick in there, I'm not surprised what at all you came up with, and I'm just thrilled to partner with you all in this cause. I do have one announcement on that accord. Our partner within our center is the Office of Civic Engagement. They are sponsoring a series right now as we speak to highlight the candidates that are running for office for the city of Cleveland and among other communities. And so what I plan to do is to share this document with them and have a conversation with them and bring you all into that mix to see how you and us as a team collectively could support the next leadership, the new leadership that comes into the city of Cleveland and the suburbs throughout the community. And so whether if you want to be hands-on or just pass along this as a source document, I appreciate either way, but this is such a huge need and a vital piece to help those elected officials get off on a good note and start strong and provide the change in leadership in each one of those communities. So I can't wait to see how this evolves over time. So I just want to say thank you, great job. And as Steve mentioned too, I want to comment about Steve, the concept of pivoting, the fact that things change in the 18 months. And the example today, just the fact that, okay, how do we scramble? How do we get this technology? How do we get things working? This is the, resiliency that I just love about everybody in this cohort and especially this team. So Alexandra, do we have some questions?
Yes, mostly comments so far, but the one question that I see, and then I'll breeze through the comments, is there a final page count?
No, I tried to keep it, I don't have it. I tried to keep one page to one topic. So if it's ethics, there's a website and a picture of it. So I don't have it. This is about as big as it is. So no, I have to count it.
Okay, so feel free to chat your questions and I'm going to breeze through these comments. So Tim states, great job on the project. Very thorough. What a useful tool. Elena says, a wonderful idea to create a living document. This manual is very comprehensive and covers a wide range of information relating to branches, departments, boards, commissions, financials, regional leadership, and ethics law. Wow, an amazing job. And Kathleen has a comment and then a suggestion. Great project that will fill a void in knowledge and leadership. Thank you for addressing this. I would suggest adding NOCCA, Northeast Ohio City Council Association, to the list of your resources and organizations. Any other questions from the audience? Going once.
Kathleen, send me that link and I'll just add it to the table of contents and just do a screenshot of the website and maybe just do an about. If she could send that to me, we can add that by the end of the day. Thank you. Great, great, great input. Thanks so much.
So it looks like Brent just chatted a question. I feel like being a public official or appointee is signing up for a lifetime of education. Have you thought about cross-linking to other niche programs that are similar to capture all the other topics?
Of course. Well, you know the challenges. I mean, we were looking for a different perspective. It ended up just being the three of us. People just didn't see it. The fact that Steve presented us a living document that will be ever evolving, just what Kathleen added, that's what we need to really achieve that. For me, it's been all of these organizations. I mean, you learn about transportation and, you know, traffic light optimization being on the NOACA board, but there actually should be maybe sort of bridge, and I'd love to hear more about that. But this document, we wanted to get the presentation done. It's editable, and we can edit it and add as much as we wanted to really be something that's very helpful. I would have loved to have had something like this, and I'm sure there's many others. So just go to a tab and say, now what do I do with this annual disclosure form, and what does a finance director do? So that's why we're very careful to add job description so people understand what role that person should play in the administration. We'd love to get some more input and make this even better. Thank you.
Yeah, Brent followed up with his question with a comment. It's a truly wonderful resource. Okay, so last chance for questions. Going once, going twice. All right.
Well, I just want to say congratulations again to your team. Way to go. Kudos, just knock out of the park. No pressure for the folks that are on day 2. But I am so proud of what everybody put together for this first session of the PMA 5 projects. Again, you all have done a fantastic job to adjust and pivot and be resilient in this crazy year, but yet still come up with amazing projects that I think will leave a mark and a legacy, and hopefully something that will be used as best practices as we move forward throughout the community. I think what Kathleen Pucci just said reminds me that we are all in this together. And as we move forward from after PMA 5, it doesn't mean that we just go our separate ways and never hear from each other again. I want to say this is our start of our program, not the end of it. And as we move forward on these various initiatives that we have, let's stay together. Let's continue to support each other. Let's spread the good news. Let's be there for as a resource, because you all are experts in the field and champions for these kind of causes. So I really look forward to what comes next in the next chapter of PMA 5. That concludes our first part of our program for the PMA project presentations. I really appreciate the fact that people hung in there, even going a little over. It was, in my opinion, well worth it. We will be back the same, a webinar on next this Friday. My bad. This Friday, the 14th, May 14th. I apologize for that. We will be back in the same format with the webinar. There is a unique link for the webinar that will be sent out to the group. You should have that, but if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to email us. Also, I will say that we are going to start a little bit later because we're going to start like about, I think, a half hour later than we normally do. Alexandra's pulling up the event calendar right now. We will start with opening remarks at 8:45 and hit the ground running with the play on the move. Project team sharp at 9 o'clock. I appreciate the fact that we went over breaks, and we will try to stick to those, but I think the information is more important than the breaks. So great job, everyone. Thank you for all of our guests that joined us from throughout the state and across the country. Sarah Lynn, thanks. You're the best. Erica, Lamont, and all of our other guests, we really appreciate it. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye.